Chapter 969. Mo Yen hastily picked her up and patted her back comfortingly. It's fine, it's fine. How do you feel now? Headache. I can't move my entire body except for my neck. The more Arbor spoke, the more she felt that she was rather pitiful. It was all that Mu Qianqian's fault. Why did she have to replace her soul without any rhyme or reason? Mo Yen hugged her with heartache. He circled her limp body and said softly, "Your conscience seems to have been damaged by an external force for no reason. Just now, I used medicinal power." You used medicinal power to help me? Xiao Mu lifted her head and stared intently at his fatigued face. Did you overuse the medicinal power? No, I know what I'm doing. Mo Yen comforted her. Jojo, do you know what happened? Arbor nodded. It's Mu Qianqian. When she thought up to this point, a thought suddenly flashed through Arbor's mind. She probably used a type of forbidden curse to force my soul out of my body and take over my body. What? Mo Yen was shocked. My master told me. Arbor didn't hide it from him. My master came by just now. Your master? Mo Yen abruptly recalled that he seemed to have sensed a powerful aura flowing inside the room. However, when he turned around to look, he only saw a black fog-like projection before he was knocked unconscious by someone. Just how powerful was Jojo's master? Arbor nodded and said anxiously, Mo Yen, look at my neck. There's a moon-shaped jade pendant. Take it off and see if there's anything engraved on it. Mo Yen nodded. Just as he reached out to touch that moon-shaped jade pendant, his fingers shrank back from the chill seeping into his body. What's wrong? Arbor could feel his body tense up. Extremely cold. Mo Yen's hand slowly lit up with a cluster of red flames. She used it to envelop the jade pendant, and only then did she take it. Are there any words on it? Arbor's eyes lit up. There's a name. Mo Yen flipped the moon-shaped jade pendant over, revealing a few small characters on the back. Dark Phoenix. Against the heavens. Arbor seemed to have been hit by something. He was stunned for a moment, and then he shouted excitedly, yes, yes. My master is called Dark Phoenix. I remember now. And Martial Uncle Nidian. I remember now. Mo Yen didn't say anything. She just looked at her and reached out to pat her back to help her calm down. However, that was all. When she saw the names, she could recall some of them, but she couldn't remember anything else. However, her master said that as long as she truly matured, she would definitely be able to break the seal, and obtain the missing part of her memories. Mo Yen put that moon-shaped jade pendant back on her neck. This jade is very good. It can help you nourish your conscience. If you wear it to cultivate your spiritual conscience, it might be twice the result with half the effort. Mo Yen. Do you believe in karma? Mo Yen looked at her in a daze. At the same time, he reached out to hug her tightly. His heart also started to fluctuate slightly. I do. As long as it's you who say it, I believe it. He looked at her deeply, then carried her to the bed and tucked her in. Sleep for a while, okay? Xiao Mu responded with a "Emichem." She indeed felt exhausted, a kind of mental exhaustion. Chapter 970. Her master had said that her soul had always been unstable and needed to be nurtured properly. She could not afford to suffer any more damage at this stage. Although she couldn't remember many things now, she already had a strange and accurate speculation in her heart about this. In addition, Qiuqiu had confidently told her that she was reborn because her master and uncle master had used the power of time and space. So in the end, after she died in her previous life, she did not immediately come back to life. Secondly, her soul had probably wandered in a desolate void for a long time. She did not know how long she had wandered in this world. Moreover, she did not know whether that void was hell or not. She could not remember what had happened in there. After that, she must have met her master and Uncle Master. Until her master and Uncle Master used the power of time and space to help her come back to life, she had lost all her memories of wandering and how she interacted with her master and Uncle Master. Actually, after coming back to life, there was no need to delve into the past. But there were some things she really did not want to forget. In addition, after her rebirth, there was one thing she did not dare to think about. It was a knot in her heart that she had always buried deep in her heart. She felt that if she dug out that hazy memory, it would hurt her to death. How did she die in her previous life? She had never thought about it. Arbor only felt her head hurt when she thought about the cause of her death in her previous life. It was as if 10,000 needles were fiercely throbbing in her brain. She was so tired that she could not even lift her eyelids. As she breathed, she smelled a faint calming medicinal fragrance. She did not know when she had fallen into a deep sleep. Seeing her frown, Mo Yen, who did not seem to be asleep with her eyes closed, gave her some medicine. Now that her breathing was slowly stabilizing, he was slightly relieved. Mo Yen sat with her for a while longer. Then, he got up and left Nanju Garden, closing the door behind him. A dark figure appeared beside him. Where is he? This subordinate has temporarily left him in the guest court where no one will go. Your Highness, are you going over now? Aoyi whispered. Mo Yen nodded and led Aoyi in the direction of the guest court. As soon as she entered the guest garden, Mo Yen quickened her pace and directly pushed open one of the side rooms. There was only a little light in the room. Under the dim light, a man was lying on the cold ground. He looked extremely miserable. His arms and legs revealed part of his white bones. He was lying there gasping for breath. Even his breathing seemed to be very weak. This was the Do family's Do Kuei. Your Highness. Stay Up Late placed a document in Mo Yen's hands. The information was very concise and contained only 2 pages of information. Aoyi whispered to him, according to the Night Pavilion's investigation, this young Master Do has some unknown hobbies. He whispered into His Highness the Crown Prince's ear, and Mo Yen cast an extremely icy gaze at Do Kuei. Mo Yen put down the 2 pieces of information. The only thing she knew was that Do Kuei's parents used to live in a town near Kwoto village and had previously planned to buy Qiaolin. Do Kuei's family was only a branch of the capital's Do family. If not for Do Kuei's talent, it would have been very difficult for his parents, who were ordinary people, to enter the capital's Do family. Mo Yen narrowed her eyes and turned to Aoyi. Wake him up. I have a few questions to ask. Yes. Aoyi stepped forward and ruthlessly splashed a basin of salt water on Do Kuei. Chapter 971. Do Kuei's eyes widened in shock, and his entire body trembled. Do you still remember Qiaolin, the Crown Princess' younger sister? The Crown Prince asked mildly. Tell me, why did you want to buy the Crown Princess' younger sister back then? How could Do Kuei remember something from so many years ago when the Crown Prince asked? Moreover, he was in a terrible state right now. His breathing was intermittent, as if he would stop breathing at any moment. A cold glint flashed through the Crown Prince's eyes. You won't tell me? Aoyi listened from the side and couldn't help but lower his head, the corners of his mouth twitching. Do Kuei might not remember something that happened 7 or 8 years ago. Then this Crown Prince will turn you into a mechanical puppet. I'll imprison your flesh and even your soul in a mechanical puppet for all eternity. You'll never be able to reincarnate. Such frightening words had obviously stirred up Do Kuei's originally listless spirit. It was definitely because he was frightened. No, don't, he hissed. His voice was clearly blocked by the Crown Prince's defensive barrier. No matter how much he screamed, he couldn't alarm the others in the Qiao estate. Then are you going to tell me or not? The Crown Prince asked coldly. Your Highness, Your Highness. Do Kuei sobbed and writhed on the ground like a pitiful worm. I really don't remember, Your Highness. Your Highness. I really don't remember offending the Crown Princess. How could he dare to offend such a demon? If he really did offend her in the past, he was willing to kneel 3 times and kowtow 9 times to apologize to the Crown Princess. You don't remember? The Crown Prince's voice was faintly suppressed with anger. Then do you remember Kwoto Village? I remember. Kwoto Village is one of the villages near our town. The Do family was the leader of the town back then. They knew very well which villages paid more and which didn't. This Kwoto village was the poorest village. His father had once nagged him about how poor this village was and how there wasn't a bit of profit. Xiao Lin, the Crown Princess' younger sister. 7 or 8 years ago, your Do family wanted to buy this little girl from Kwoto village to adopt. Do Kuei's eyes widened. Her. It's her. Speaking of Kwoto village, he recalled that there was indeed such a matter back then. However, that family refused to sell their daughter, so the matter was left unsettled. Why did you buy her? Do Kuei stammered and didn't want to say anything. Suddenly, a purple flame fell on his waist and burned. He rolled on the ground in pain, but he couldn't put out the flame. Still not willing to speak. The Crown Prince asked coldly. Speak, I'll speak. I'll talk. Yes, I'm despicable and shameless. Do Kuei said, trembling. I saw that the little girl was cute, and I had thoughts that I shouldn't have. I wanted to buy her and raise her by my side for a few years. The Crown Prince's eyes darkened. Kill him. Get rid of his parents and family. Yes, Your Highness. No, Your Highness, I've already admitted to everything. If you want me to die, I have nothing to say. But don't blame my family. Mo Lien tossed him a cold gaze. How could your parents not know about that little hobby of yours? No one in this family was innocent. No. Don't, Your Highness. Your Highness. Chapter 972. Do Kuei turned pale with fright as he watched the man slam the door and leave. He only felt that the flame at his waist seemed to have abruptly given birth to a strange power, and with a whoosh, the flames shot up extremely high. Mo Lien took a deep breath and looked up at the boundless, pitch-black night sky, a pensive look flitting across her eyes. She could tell that Jojo's eyes were brimming with undisguised hatred for this Do Kuei. It was absolute hatred, and she wanted to execute this person by 1,000 cuts. If it was merely the small enmity of Kwoto Village's failed business transaction with Xiao Lin, how could she bear such intense hatred and resentment with this Do family? Her grudge with Do Kuei was limited to that transaction with Xiao Lin. Logically speaking, after the transaction failed, the two families should have no more interactions. In addition, she and little Sixth Zheng had never met before Bailon City, so where did that inexplicable good feeling come from? Could it be that Duan Yu's crow's beak had really hit the nail on the head, and that it was an old grudge from a past life? What exactly happened in Jojo's past life that she completely didn't want to continue guessing? What was up with his Jojo's past life? Didn't that mean that his Jojo had once died? When she thought of this, Mo Lien felt that her breathing had almost stopped. Under the boundless night sky, Missouri Lien's back was ramrod straight, and her deep phoenix eyes were gazing deeply into the distance. She didn't move in the slightest for a long time. Meanwhile, the Do family had already been turned upside down. The Do family's steward, who had rushed over to report the news, trembled all over as he knelt in front of the Do family's family head, Do Hepping. He stammered, after the Do family's courtyard caught fire, the fire couldn't be extinguished no matter what. After we mobilized people and finally extinguished the fire with great difficulty, we only saw the corpses of Do Kuei's family. Did you make a clear count? Eldest young Sir Do asked coldly. Do Kuei's family had a total of 7 people. Why they've already been burned to ashes. Eldest young Sir Do glanced icily at Steward Do. That means we couldn't make a head count at all. Fengmian, what do you want to say? Dou Heping attached great importance to his eldest son and second son. Whenever there was a problem, he liked to listen to his two sons' opinion. Father, I want to say that the fire this time came so suddenly and strangely. I'm afraid that someone set the fire. Lead the way. Dou Fenghua stood up and glanced at Steward Dou. Steward Dou quickly led the way for the second young master, leading the two young masters and the Dou family's patriarch, Dou Heping, to the Dou Kuei family's courtyard, which was blackened by the fire. The disciples surrounding the courtyard were all chased away by housekeeper Dou's men. In the end, the dozen or so servants went through the courtyard and only found 6 half-human and half-lesbian corpses. Dou Fenghua sighed and said, Father, let's just let this matter pass. We'll hold the funeral tomorrow and just say it was an accident. Fenghua. Dou Fenghua took out a thin piece of paper from her sleeve and handed it to her father and elder brother. You just offended the crown princess this morning, and now you're sending someone to silence me at night. Dou Heping was suddenly furious. What's more, I don't know if what's written on the paper is true or false. Could it be that just because Dou Kuei once tried to taint the crown princess's younger sister, he can treat human lives like grass? Dou Kuei was considered an extremely talented member of the Dou family's younger generation, so Dou Heping couldn't swallow the resentment in his heart. Father, you have to swallow it even if you can't. Dou Fenghua said indifferently. If you want the Dou family to be well, then draw a clear line between you and Dou Kuei's family from now on. After saying this, she swaggered off. Chapter 973. Dou Heping glanced at Dou Fengmian. Fengmian, what do you think? Dou Fengmian nodded. Second brother's analysis is correct. For our Dou clan, we have to swallow this anger for the time being. If my guess is correct, it wasn't the crown princess who did it. No matter how one looked at it, it was definitely that person who had made such a swift, incisive, and unpredictable move. Seeing that his two sons had the same attitude, Dou Heping could only sigh helplessly and nod. Right now, the most important thing is Fengqi's preparation for the Mystic Beast Forest's secret realm. Dou Heping nodded. That's right. It's a pity that Yao was eliminated. I originally thought that the two sisters could still travel together. Dou Fengmian said indifferently, that's not bad. Look at the Mu clan. They originally had lofty aspirations of obtaining 2 spots, but in the end, they didn't obtain a single one. The Talisman patrician family's failure this time simply made them the laughingstock of the entire capital. Dou Heping revealed a faint smile when he heard this. That's right. Apart from the Wu clan, which was originally slightly weaker, this time, the Mu clan, the head of the 8 great patrician families, also joined the ranks of the losers. This was very surprising. The other 6 patrician families each had one person who won, so it could be considered a tie. In the Qin Estate's Crane Garden, young Master Omega Kotoku supported his chin with his hand and tilted his head slightly as he casually wrote and drew on a piece of paper. A delicate and pretty woman dressed in black stood silently in front of the desk with her head bowed. She wore a short jacket with arrow sleeves, and her long hair was neatly tied up tightly, revealing her high hairline. On this trip to the Mystic Beast Forest's secret realm, the first thing to search for is a 10,000-year-old Xuanji core. You should already be clear. Yes. Qin Susu nodded crisply. She participated in the selection as the eldest and second young master's foster sister. In reality, she was a hidden guard that the second young master had nurtured for many years. She was very clear about her position and what she needed to do. She only needed to act according to the second young master's orders and had no other thoughts. Also, Omega Kotoku put down the brush in his hand and indifferently swept a glance over Qin Susu. You must ensure Miss Chiao's safety on this trip. If necessary, you must protect her with your life. Qin Susu was stunned for a moment, then nodded, yes, subordinate obeys. Then, he carefully glanced at Omega Kotoku. Omega Kotoku asked coldly, what other questions do you have? If Miss Chiao also wishes to obtain the Xuanji core, what should I do? Qin Susu pursed her lips, a serious look on her delicate face. Omega Kotoku suddenly smiled, a trace of dark green flowing in the depths of her eyes, and there was a faint warmth between her brows. If she wants it, then give it to her. It's just a Xuanji core. Qin Susu was stunned. Wasn't second young master spoiling her too much? Then may I ask, what is the point of this subordinate risking his life for? Was it to help Miss Chiao obtain the Xuanji core? Second young master left the desk and walked out the door, leaving Qin Susu standing in front of the desk in a daze for a long time. A piece of ink paper floated down from the table and landed softly at Qin Susu's feet. Qin Susu looked down. The paper was filled with the word Chiao, written clearly and forcefully on the back of the paper. Qin Susu pursed her lips. She was only a hidden guard. She would definitely complete her master's orders, even if it meant risking her life. Omega Kotoku walked out of the room and stroked the large crane that was strolling leisurely in the garden with a deep look in his eyes. Chapter 974. The patriarch of the Mu family, Mu Boming, was about to explode from anger. They had entered the selection competition full of confidence, but in the end, their Mu family didn't even get a single spot. In addition, Madame Mu had been weeping endlessly next to him, saying that something must have happened to her daughter since she hadn't returned yet. She nagged him to send people to search for her non-stop, which made him extremely vexed for no reason. Master, Madam. A servant hurriedly came to report, Miss has returned. Ah, my Qianqian has returned. Madame Mu promptly jumped up from her chair with joy on her face. Mu Boming glared at Madame Mu in displeasure. You're the only one who's freaking out all day. What could have happened to Qianqian? She must have gone to cause trouble again. Madame Mu ignored him and walked over to welcome her daughter. However, when she saw Mu Qianqian being carried in with a ghastly pale face, she immediately cried out in alarm. Qianqian! My daughter! Madame Mu pounced over to hug her daughter and howled, who exactly caused you to become like this? Mu Boming was also slightly alarmed, and he turned around to berate that servant. What exactly happened? Master, this lowly one also doesn't know. Eldest Miss was thrown at the side door, and no one knows who sent Eldest Miss back. Qianqian, our daughter. Madame Mu bawled as she wiped her tears. Master, quickly think of a way to save our daughter. Mu Boming's expression was very unsightly, and he turned around to roar at that servant. What are you all still standing there for? Hurry and invite the capital's most famous physician to the estate to take eldest Mrs. Pulse. After the Mu family bustled about in a flurry of activity, Mu Boming was informed by several elderly physicians that his daughter Mu Qianqian had contracted a very rare soul loss illness and would probably never wake up again in this lifetime. Late at night, a short and small figure appeared on the wall of the outer courtyard of the Marquis of Jiayuan's estate. This person was precisely Sir Black Cat, who had quietly left after throwing Mu Qianqian's abandoned body at the entrance of the Mu family's estate. After he left with Arbor, in his conceit, he found a remote place, but he couldn't wake Mu Qianqian up no matter what. She tried all kinds of methods and used everything she could think of, even using fire and stabbing, but in the end, Mu Qianqian was still as motionless as a corpse. Lord Black Cat then realized that something might have gone wrong during the soul-swapping process. This was what caused Mu Qianqian's body to enter a soulless state, so she could be considered a completely useless trash. Therefore, Black Cat wanted to take advantage of the night to come to the Marquis of Jiayuan's estate to take a look at Miss Chiao's situation. Unfortunately, his front foot had just leaped onto the wall when his back foot was almost struck by a sudden burst of profound energy. An ambush? What a good black cat! It bent its waist in midair and then landed steadily on the ground covered with small pebbles in the courtyard. When he saw clearly who was in front of him, his pupils could not help but shrink slightly. Pa, 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 Mo Yen clapped her hands with a faint smile. The corners of her lips curled up slightly as she slowly walked over from under the shade of the tree. Her pair of phoenix eyes appeared especially bright under the illumination of the night stars. I guessed that someone would come, but I didn't expect it to be you. Mo Yen sneered at him. You are that clown from the Luo family troupe, right? Why do you have to hide your head and show your tail? Black Cat was truly startled by His Highness the Crown Prince acting like this. In his impression, he had only seen His Highness the Crown Prince from afar on the day they entered the palace. Chapter 975. After that, although he and the Luo family troupe were arranged to stay in the palace, only the concubines came to watch the opera. He had never seen the Crown Prince. In other words, the Crown Prince recognized his identity with just one glance when he entered the palace. What kind of terrifying eyesight was this? When he entered the palace, he was a short clown hiding in the crowd. He was inconspicuous. Even so, the Crown Prince's eyesight was so accurate. Lord Black Cat's pupils constricted again, and he stepped back. The Crown Prince's lips curled into a cold smile. Suddenly, Lord Black Cat moved. He threw out a Xianing talisman in each hand. This was the most basic offensive talisman in the forbidden talisman arts. It drew on the Yin energy between heaven and earth. Once it entered a person's body, it could cause extensive damage. Lord Black Cat was using a mid-level Xianing talisman. If Arbor was here, he could use a high-level defensive talisman to block it. Yet at this time, Mo Yen didn't even look at Black Cat. Purple flames ignited in his hand, and he directly burned the two mystic Yin talismans. Yin energy could not withstand fire spirits. Moreover, Mo Yen's purple flame spirit was a 9th-level spiritual fire. It could ignore all other fire spirits except for the holy flame. The two Xian Yin talismans struggled to break free from the raging fire, and then were burned to ashes. Lord Black Cat's pupils constricted, and he immediately turned to flee. However, as soon as he moved, countless arrows shot at him from the top of the wall, causing him to fly back. Stay Up Late waved his hand, and a row of people stood up from the wall. They were all waiting for Lord Black Cat. A talisman master, Mo Yen said calmly. Tell me, how should I deal with you? Damn it. Lord Black Cat gritted his teeth, and suddenly threw out a dozen Xianing talismans from his sleeves. He charged at Stay Up Late and the others. Disperse, Mo Yen said coldly. Stay Up Late and the others were not stupid. Seeing so many talismans coming at them, they quickly jumped down from the wall. Bam, bam, bam. The talismans cracked in the air, and a cold aura came at them. Mo Yen swiftly leaped onto the top of the wall and formed several complicated hand seals that resembled the shape of a lotus with lightning speed that left no time for covering one's ears. A few black lotuses suddenly appeared, and were thrown in front of Lord Black Cat. Lord Black Cat growled, and quickly retreated. He covered his face with his sleeves, and his body was full of energy for defense. Suddenly, boom! Boom! A burst of explosive sounds rang out, and the wall was directly torn into pieces by this force. Lord Black Cat's broken body, along with the wall, fell heavily to the ground. Cough, cough, cough. Black Cat coughed out a few mouthfuls of blood in horror. It turned its head in disbelief to look at the tall and slender figure of the Crown Prince, who remained silent. How? His Highness the Crown Prince had defeated him in one move. He could be considered one of the top charm masters, but when he met His Highness the Crown Prince, he didn't even have the slightest ability to fight back. How could youngsters nowadays be so terrifying? How could he endure this? Cough, cough. Lord Black Cat could not stop coughing. Mo Yen gave a look, and Stay Up Late and the others immediately jumped forward. They lifted Lord Black Cat from the ground, and forced him to kneel in front of him. You look a bit familiar to me. Mo Yen remarked dryly. Chapter 976. Swoosh. Aoye understood tacitly and stepped forward to pull off the black hat on Sir Black Cat's head. While he was at it, he grabbed her hair and lifted her face up. Mo Lien's eyes flickered as she looked at his face and smiled coldly. No wonder you look so familiar. You must be the brother of the snake-driving dwarf. That's right. If Arbor was here, she would definitely realize that Sir Black Cat's face was exactly the same as the two dwarves who attacked her. The eldest of the three dwarf brothers was this Sir Black Cat who was adept at using charms. He was Shuntian Prefecture's Luigi's lackey. Mo Lien narrowed her eyes and nodded at Aoye. Aoye's hand chopped down cleanly and knocked Sir Black Cat unconscious. Interrogate him properly. This time, we must interrogate Luigi's whereabouts. Mo Lien curled her lips and sneered. We have no interest in playing cat and mouse games with him anymore. Yes, Your Highness. Aoye knew that His Highness the Crown Prince was in a very bad mood, so he hurriedly shrunk his neck and agreed. I'll mend this wall later. Mo Lien turned around and walked briskly into the courtyard. The next morning, Arbor lay on the bed, feeling no different from a paralyzed patient. She could move her arms and legs slightly, but she still didn't have the strength to get up from the bed. Wei Ziqin, Qiao Zhongbang, Qiao Lin, and the others came to check on her anxiously. After being comforted by her, they left Nanzhu Garden with some relief. At noon, she finally felt hungry. The Crown Prince lifted her up and fed her half a bowl of porridge. How are you feeling? Mo Lien reached out to touch her forehead and whispered, Are you feeling better? I don't have any strength. Qiao Mu tilted her head dejectedly. Will I always be a good-for-nothing? Mo Lien couldn't help but laugh. How is that possible? Your soul is shaken, so it will definitely affect your body. I'm sure he'll recover in 2 days. That may be the case, but aren't we about to go to the Mystic Beast Forest secret realm? It's still early. We still have 10 days. It won't be too late to go there then. Speaking of this, Mo Lien couldn't help but glance at her worriedly. Jojo, I can only escort you to the entrance of the Mystic Beast Forest secret realm. I can't accompany you into the secret realm. Of course. Arbor said with a nod. Xiao Dongbua had previously said that if anyone above the age of 20 tried to force their way into the Mystic Beast Forest secret realm, they would be mercilessly exterminated at the entrance. Therefore, this arcane realm had an age limit. Although she didn't know how it determined this, she certainly didn't want Mo Lien to take the risk. Then I won't be able to see you for a month, Mo Lien said unhappily. The mystic realm could only be opened once every 10 years. Each time it opened, it would be open for a month. Within a month, the mystic realm would not open again. Of course, if one couldn't leave the mystic realm after a month, then there was a possibility that they would stay there forever. You must remember to come out once the 1-month deadline is up. You mustn't be greedy and act rashly, got it? Mo Lien suddenly thought of this and hastily said to her. Don't worry, I'm not stupid. Arbor puffed up her cheeks, thinking that she was just going in to take a look. Most importantly, she wanted to take the opportunity to make a trip to the Mystic Beast Forest and gather some Mystic Beast cores for the little white squirrel to nourish its body. Chapter 977. Previously, Mo Lien had Morning Sunlight Pavilion's people gather a batch of Mystic Beast cores and feed them to the little white squirrel. Sure enough, it was greatly beneficial to its body. At this time, the little fat squirrel was a lot fatter than before, and its big tail was also longer. She reckoned that if she fed it more Mystic Beast cores, it should wake up. Thinking of this, Arbor's mood couldn't help but improve. The two of them talked for a while with their heads together. In the afternoon, people from the palace came to invite Mo Lien back. Xiao Yao stayed by the bedside to look after Arbor. Arbor's spirit was a bit weak, so she slept. When she woke up, it was already 10 minutes into the night. Arbor felt a bit dizzy in her daze. She got up and ate 2 mouthfuls of food before lying down to sleep again. She didn't know that when she fell asleep, the moon-shaped jade pendant on her neck had been emitting a faint light. These 2 days, Arbor had been eating and sleeping, switching between half awake and half asleep. After 2 full days, she finally felt that her head didn't hurt as much anymore, and her spirit also recovered a bit. When she got up early in the morning, she gave Xiao Yao a big fright. "Miss, why are you up? I've been lying down for 2 days. It's time to get up and move around." Arbor sighed and carelessly wiped her little face before throwing the handkerchief into the basin. "That's true." Xiao Yao nodded and said, "Miss can finally get up and move around. I'll go tell Master and Madam this good news." "Go ahead." Arbor nodded. "Oh, have someone prepare the carriage. I want to go out and take a breather." She was almost bored to death at home. Now that she was in the carriage, she specially had Xiao Yao hang up the windows and curtains a bit so that she could breathe in the cold wind outside. "Miss, it's cold outside today. Will you catch a cold?" Xiao Yao nervously draped a fur coat over her. Arbor could not help but laugh. She knew her own body better than anyone else. There was no problem at all. It was just that her soul had been touched and she was mentally exhausted. However, after a day or 2 of repairs, it would probably be completely healed. These 2 days, our Guanlan city hasn't been peaceful. Xiao Yao pursed her lips. Rats and ants can be seen everywhere on the streets, and they're all very big. They all said that there was a problem with the Nimpan Tower of the Honghai Temple. I don't know who started this rumor, but it's said that a demon has appeared and a calamity has descended from the heavens. These days, His Highness the Crown Prince has been busy dealing with the rumors in Jingdo. Xiao Yao turned her head and looked at Arbor with a smile. "Are you going to the palace to see His Highness?" Arbor was startled and then shook his head indifferently. "I just wanted to come out and take a breather." "Oh." It was only then that Xiao Yao clearly saw a hint of disgust flash past the Crown Prince Consort's eyes. This was disgust for the palace. Sigh. Xiao Yao let out a long sigh. It seemed that after the Lantern Festival incident, it would be difficult to make the Crown Princess willingly enter the palace. "Right, that Taoist priest Dayu." Arbor asked with a frown, "Did you find him?" She felt that this person was a bit strange, as if he harbored great enmity towards her. However, she did not know him at all. "We've searched the entire city, but we couldn't find him. I'm afraid he escaped." Peony frowned as well. His Highness the Crown Prince had sent many people to investigate. Chapter 978. Even so, that old Taoist was still able to slip away. It was evident that his methods were exceedingly formidable and unrivaled. Arbor nodded in response. Recalling Priest Dayu's mocking gaze, she couldn't help but secretly clench her fists. There was definitely something strange about this person. The 2 of them sat in the carriage and casually strolled around the city. During this time, Arbor indeed saw many fat rats appear in the city. They wantonly scurried through the streets, causing the pedestrians to shriek in fright. "Miss, it's those fat rats. They look really disgusting." Xiao Yao grabbed the carriage curtain and turned to glance at her. A strange glint flashed through Arbor's eyes. She nodded and said, "Amen, it's about time to breathe. Let's go back. A sorcerer has come into being. A calamity descending from the heavens." Haha. It wasn't that she was sensitive, but she felt that there was a hint of a conspiracy behind this. However, she wanted to see how such a huge accusation would be planted on her head if she wasn't in the capital. The next day, His Highness the Crown Prince, who was discussing politics in the Eastern Palace's small study, received a report from a subordinate. "Your Highness, it's bad." The Crown Princess packed her things and ran away. "What?" Mo Yen immediately tossed away the brush in her hand and jumped up from her chair. Huifeng swept a glance at Hidden Flower, who came to report. Was it his imagination? Why did he feel that Hidden Flower had an impudent smile in his eyes? Wasn't he afraid that the Crown Prince would destroy him with a single hand with his ghastly expression of schadenfreude? What exactly happened? Hurry and speak. Mo Lien was both shocked and surprised. Last night, he even went to the Qiao estate to see his little emperor darling. He was very happy to see that she could get out of bed and walk around safely. Why did she run away today? This subordinate doesn't know. Hidden Flower chuckled as his body swayed. He covered his mouth and said, perhaps the Crown Princess wanted to give you a surprise. Ha, what a pleasant surprise. Hui Feng rolled his eyes at him before retracting his gaze. He cupped his fists and bowed to Crown Prince Lien. Your Highness, this subordinate is willing to immediately go and chase the Crown Princess back. Hidden Flower pursed his lips when he heard this. Come on. The Crown Princess is riding on Qing Yuan. How are you going to chase after her? You think you can outrun Qing Yuan with your 2 legs? Ha! Mo Lien hurriedly walked out. Where did she go? Your Highness, don't be anxious. Hidden Flower appeared in front of the Crown Prince in a flash and took out a letter from his sleeve. The Crown Princess left a letter for you. Mo Lien hurriedly took the letter and opened it. Mo Lien, I'll bring the little monk back to Hulun Mountain. We'll be back in 3 days. Don't worry. Mo Lien was stunned for a moment, but she still walked out of the study. Hidden Flower hurriedly said, Your Highness, are you really going? The Crown Princess said that you've been busy with government affairs and asked you to focus on them. Who would be in the mood to deal with political affairs? His wife had run away. What the hell was he supposed to deal with? As he spoke, Gong Cheng and ran over in small steps, panting as he shouted, Your Highness, the great king has summoned you. Her Majesty the Empress Dowager and the 12th Prince have returned. Your Highness, don't worry. Lightning and the others have already followed the Crown Princess. Even though they might not be able to catch up. At this moment, our dear Qiao Mu, who had packed her bags and ran away, had already flown to Quoto village on Qing Yuan. In his arms, he was also hugging the bald little monk, Kong Kong. Benefactress, where are we going? Chapter 979. Arbor sat cross-legged inside the defensive barrier, flipping through the parchment map in her hands. Kong Kong, your Buddhist hand seals are not bad. Hearing that, the little monk immediately patted his chest with his claws. Of course, this is a compulsory course for this little monk. Blue Wan, we're almost there. Let's go down. Okay, Master. Blue Wan immediately flapped her wings and slowly descended. That day, she had obtained a parchment map from the old monk of Shadow Moon Temple. With just one glance, she could clearly recognize that the location marked on the land of heritage was Quoto village's Hulun Mountain. Wasn't it very surprising? She had not expected that after leaving the village for so many years, she would actually return once again. And according to the location marked on the map, this land of heritage was actually. It was in the vicinity of the stone forest where she had first found the paradise. This was really too much of a coincidence. A faint trace of doubt flashed through Arbor's heart. After jumping down from Blue Wan's back, Blue Wan immediately transformed into human form. She had the appearance of a handsome youth of 17 or 18 years old. Her features were very outstanding, but her green robes were a little tight on her body. Da Qing, you seem to have grown a little taller. Arbor reached out to compare their heights. When Blue Wan had first transformed into human form, she had only been 13 or 14 years old. In this half a month, she had grown a little too much. As Master, it was time for her to buy some clothes for her subordinates, so that they would not be so tight when they went out. It would be a little funny. Master, while absorbing the essence earth, I also benefited a lot. Blue Wan hurriedly nodded. Benefactress, carry me. The little monk dragged his feet and suddenly reached out to tug at the corner of Arbor's clothes. Scared. Arbor reached out and picked him up, carrying him in her arms as they continued forward. The Quoto village in front of them was now a pile of ruins. After 7 to 8 years of wind and rain, the originally half-built mud houses had now collapsed. Xiao Mu stepped on the pile of dust and rubble as she slowly walked, paying attention to her surroundings as she walked. The little monk abruptly formed a Buddhist seal with his chubby fingers before smacking Xiao Mu's forehead with a smack. Arbor. Benefactress, there are quite a few ghost spirits here. Did you feel unwell just now? The corner of Arbor's mouth twitched as he shook his head. No. Why did this brat feel like he was a fraud? The little monk shook his head and muttered to himself, Benefactress, you are indeed a unique weirdo in this world. Then take a look again. Do you see anything? Just now, he had used the Buddha seal to open her eyes. For the time being, she could see some drifting ghosts. She should avoid them as much as possible. It was not good to be contaminated with yin qi. No. Arbor shook her head. She only saw the ruins. Arbor pinched his chubby cheeks and asked curiously, are there really ghosts in this world? Not ghosts, but ghost spirits. The little monk puffed up his chubby cheeks and said in a childish voice, since there are immortal spirits in this world, there are naturally ghost spirits. Aren't you great talisman masters able to make deity-inviting talismans and invite immortal spirits to possess you? Arbor silently shut her little mouth. She had never heard of deity-inviting talismans. This brat actually knew quite a lot. In the past, after finishing my evening classes, Master would tell me some anecdotes before going to bed. Benefactress, you have to read more books. Chapter 980. Arbor didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Was she being looked down on by a little ghost? What else did Great Master Kong Yin say? Master said that ghost spirits are the convergence of resentment and are born with the power of evil. Oh, there was once a talisman master who wantonly killed villagers and deliberately created ghost spirits to practice a forbidden technique called the Dark Yin Talisman. Arbor nodded in understanding. I understand. I haven't learned the God-inviting talisman yet. Then it's no wonder you're ignorant and inexperienced. The little monk sighed, pretending to be an old man. Arbor's mouth twitched. She raised a hand and rubbed his little bald head. Speak properly, don't be so sarcastic. Benefactress, you really can't see the ghost spirits? The little monk casually pointed in front of them. I can't see them. It was quite strange that Arbor couldn't see the ghost spirits. After all, the little monk had opened his eyes for her. These ghost spirits probably didn't look too beautiful, so it didn't matter whether she could see them or not. As the two spoke, they heard rustling sounds coming from the ruins in front of them. Suddenly, an ugly one-legged, one-armed corpse hag jumped out. Its skin and flesh had rotted away, making it look like a moving skeleton. Wah! The little monk reflexively reached out and wrapped his arms tightly around Arbor's neck. In the next moment, Arbor raised her arm and shot a crow-gold arrow at the skeletal corpse puppet, sending it flying and landing heavily on the ground. She had naturally killed it with a headshot. That corpse puppet definitely wouldn't be able to get up again. Arbor put down her crow-repeating crossbow and stared at the corpse puppet in a daze. After so many years, she couldn't recognize who this person was at all. Or perhaps, even if she recognized him, she would still shoot him to death. Arbor pursed her lips and didn't say anything else. She observed her surroundings again. Seeing that there were no other strange movements, she stepped forward. After so many years, the villagers of the nearby Wei family village, which was close to Quoto village, had probably either died or fled. Most of the zombies had also left this barren area to hunt for food. Benefactress, you used to live here. The little monk hugged her neck and asked softly, are you in a bad mood? Okay, stop talking. Arbor carried the child and walked quickly towards Hulun Mountain. Along the way, they could see how tragic Quoto village was at that time. Most of the villagers should have escaped. Those whose bodies were torn apart didn't turn into corpse puppets, but because their resentment didn't dissipate, they became the ghost spirits that the little monk spoke of. If my senior martial brothers didn't go out to travel, they could help the villagers here release their souls from purgatory, the small monk muttered. Xiao Mu didn't pay him any more attention as she carried him and walked towards Hulun Mountain with Qinghuan. Although she hadn't returned for many years, she still remembered some of the paths. Albert took a shortcut all the way to the stone forest and looked around. Did you find anything? The little monk shook his head. Shouldn't I use the startled swan dagger to open this land of heritage first? Arbor muttered to herself. The startled swan dagger suddenly flew out of her conscious and circled above her head. Suddenly, a blue figure glided through the air and reached out a huge palm to grab the startled swan dagger. You're courting death. Arbor's eyes flickered, and she threw out several hidden weapons. The dark wind attacked, and the huge palm suddenly shrank back. Arbor's eyes were cold as she stared. He immediately roared angrily at the sky, Arbor. This damn girl, let's see where she can escape to. He didn't expect that the damn girl would grow to this extent after being left alone. It was simply abominable. Chapter 982. When the three figures reappeared, they were already in a small and quiet bamboo forest. This land of heritage wasn't big. Behind the bamboo forest were three small thatched cottages. There was only a shallow stream flowing in front of the door. It really looked like a secluded place. Secluded, tranquil, and light. The moment Arbor entered this place, she took a deep breath. She only felt that her heart was filled with a sense of peace. No matter how much fighting and killing was going on outside, it had nothing to do with this place. Benefactress, what should we do next? There was a faint trace of worry between the little monk's brows. Arbor glanced at him and immediately reached out to rub his little face. You're so young, but you look so mature. If there's anything, big sister will be here. What's the rush? Let's go see this senior first. After saying that, she pulled the round-headed little monk with one hand and walked into the small bamboo forest. They came to the door of the three small thatched cottages. Pushing open the master bedroom in the middle, a faint pill fragrance wafted out. Arbor's figure suddenly froze. She stared blankly at the skeleton on the bed, slightly dazed. The skeleton was covered in a layer of bright red robes. Its sitting posture was extremely upright. For a moment, Arbor seemed to see the woman in red who had swept through an army of 10,000 people single-handedly in the past. Benefactress. The little monk reached out to shake her clothes. Arbor came back to her senses. She lowered her head and looked at Kong Kong blankly. What's wrong? Arbor shook her head. She subconsciously pressed a hand to her chest. Why did she suddenly feel like she couldn't breathe? It was as if there was an invisible claw tightly grasping her heart. For a moment, she couldn't speak. It was as if in that moment, the sorrow in her heart was indescribable. It was as if she wanted to vent it through crying. Her eyes suddenly reddened. But why did she suddenly want to cry? You look so sad, benefactress. The little monk reached out to hug her leg and rubbed against it. Carry me. Arbor was still in a daze, but he did as he was told and picked up the little baldy. The little monk reached out and hugged her neck. He stretched out a small hand and placed it on her face. He said in all seriousness, don't cry. This little monk can't bear to see women cry. The mournful and sorrowful atmosphere was almost blown away by the little monk's words. Qing Wan watched from the side and rolled her eyes speechlessly. Do you feel better? The little monk's palm had an endless amount of heat. Therefore, when it touched her small, bone-chilling face, it gave her a sense of warmth. This senior should have died many years ago. The small monk turned his head and looked at the bed. Look at her. Her expression is serene and there's even a hint of a smile on her face. She must have known that her life was coming to an end. Qing Wan wanted to ridicule little Baldy. Where did you get your eyes from? Looking at this skeleton with such a serene expression. Everyone will reach this step, unless you can jump out of the heavens will and ignore the heavenly Tao. Benefactress, don't be sad. The little monk comforted her in a childish voice. Let's go up and see what kind of good inheritance this senior left for you. Since senior opened the cave and let us in, she must have left something for you. Qing Wan nodded. Master, don't be sad. Let's go and take a look. Arbor's eyes reddened. Actually, she also couldn't understand herself. It wasn't the first time she faced death. Why would her emotions fluctuate? Chapter 983. Indeed, after so many years, hadn't she already seen too much life and death? Why did she have such a change in her emotions when facing a stranger? She put down the little monk and walked forward. She picked up a yellowed letter placed beside the skeleton and opened it. Arbor read it line by line. My disciple, Master doesn't know your name, so I'll call you this for now. You being able to step into this secret inheritance realm is a fortuitous opportunity. It's the fate of Master and disciple that we have. If you want to inherit my mantle, kneel down and kowtow 3 times to Master. Arbor immediately put down the letter and knelt in front of the skeleton. Her eyes reddened slightly as she lowered her head and kowtowed 3 times to this senior extremely respectfully. She then picked up the letter and continued reading. Master's name is Long Chuyun. I'm an experienced pill refiner. You don't need to know who I am. Take away the space ring on Master's left hand. Inside is the inheritance that Master left for you. In addition, in the pill room on the left, there are pills that Master has refined for many years. In the grass hut on the right, there are medicinal herbs that Master has nurtured for many years. Take all of them. Master doesn't have any more requests for you. Master only hopes that you can treat merfolk well on account of our relationship as master and disciple. The letter stopped here. As expected, Master didn't have any requests for her. Master only hoped that she could treat merfolk well when she encountered them in the future. But this wasn't a request at all. Arbor only felt stuffy. There were too many doubts and things that he wanted to know. For example, why was Master hunted down by Shuntian Prefecture back then, and why did she die in this secret realm? He almost couldn't suppress the sorrow in his heart again. Long Chuyun didn't insist that the disciple take revenge on behalf of the master like other people did. She didn't mention the name of her enemy at all. She didn't even mention Shuntian Prefecture. When she took off the lustrous white ring on Long Chuyun's skeleton and held it in her hand, she seemed to be able to feel a faint energy fluctuation. Space rings basically couldn't be seen in the lower star domain. Everyone knew that mystic cultivators had inner worlds, but it was another matter whether they could open one or not. Other than that, if he wanted to store things conveniently, he could only rely on the storage cabinets created by artificers. Storage cabinets were placed in various large cities to facilitate the storage of items. Naturally, a certain amount of profound stones was required as storage fees. Moreover, a small storage space usually required a lot of magnetite. Therefore, people who weren't especially rich wouldn't do something so extravagant. Don't even think about those villages and towns, they don't even have lockers. Therefore, this storage cabinet was expensive and inconvenient to use. As for the storage talismans made by Arbor, they were hard to come by even on the black market. Naturally, he wouldn't even think about it. A spatial ring was something that most people in the lower star domain had never heard of. It could be seen that her teacher's identity was very special. Unfortunately, she didn't say anything, so Arbor could only put away Long Chuyun's letter in confusion. He got up and walked to the grass hut next to him. Her master had said that he had left something for her in the 2 thatched cottages. Arbor sighed softly, feeling suffocated. Why won't the teacher tell us who her enemy is? Senior Long is a person of great wisdom, the little monk muttered to himself. Xiao Mu blinked, and a dark glint flashed through her eyes. Chapter 984. If teacher asked her to get rid of the people from Shuntian Manor, she would be very happy. Qing Wan nodded. Perhaps this senior doesn't want her disciple, whom she has never met, to be in danger. Arbor got up and walked towards the straw hut on the left. On the other side, Mo Lien went to the Empress Dowager's Longevity Palace to pay his respects to his grandmother. The Empress Dowager affectionately pulled his hand to sit down and looked at him kindly. "My good grandson, let grandmother take a good look at you. Aren't you a little thin?" "It's all father's fault, throwing a bunch of trivial matters to grandson all day long. Grandson is so busy that I'm thin." Mo Lien didn't hesitate to dig a hole for his father. The great king, who was originally sitting at the side, almost jumped up from his stool when he heard that. The Empress Dowager couldn't help but chuckle. She turned around and glared at the great king. "Great king, the crown prince is busy with his marriage after all. Don't give him too many things to do during this period of time." Biased. Blatant favoritism. He's the crown prince of a country, what's there to be busy with about his marriage? It's just a matter of a word. The great king couldn't help but look at his mother with a slightly sour nose. He didn't dare to refute and nodded his head. "Son knows." Prince Mo immediately acted obedient to his grandmother. "Grandmother, you still love your grandson dearly." The Empress Dowager laughed and turned to look at him. She asked with a smile, "Where's your little wife? Quickly let grandmother see her. The little girl that my grandson has taken a fancy to must be the best." Speaking of this, Prince Mo felt a little stifled. He coughed lightly and said, In 2 days, grandmother." "What's wrong?" The Empress Dowager couldn't help but be curious when she saw him hemming and hawing. Then she said, "Oh, that's right. I heard that your wife was slightly injured after the competition 2 days ago. Then let her rest for a few more days. Grandmother isn't in a hurry." Prince Mo hesitated for a moment. "Maybe my wife won't be able to come to the palace for a while." Empress Xiao, who was holding a teacup, trembled and almost spilled the tea on the floor. She glared at her son with her beautiful eyes. "What's wrong?" The Empress Dowager hurriedly asked, "Could it be that someone has wronged my granddaughter-in-law?" "That's right, she's really been wronged." Prince Mo hurriedly said, "Grandmother, you must support your granddaughter-in-law." "Of course." The Empress Dowager hurriedly nodded and said, "How can the child that my grandson likes not be good? Don't worry, if you have any grievances, just tell me. Grandma will take care of it for you." The great king bitterly made a sullen expression. "Ahem, mother, it's better not to spoil your child too much." "How is that doting?" The Empress Dowager immediately retorted in annoyance. "This grandson of mine has never made me worry about him since he was young. He's such a good child, how am I doting? Tell grandmother. Grandmother will make the decision for you too." The Empress Dowager made the final decision. The great king's entire face turned a bit green. He hurriedly interrupted, "It's fine, it's fine. It's really fine. Mother, you must be tired from the journey and have just returned. Why don't you rest first?" "Why should I rest? The 12th prince has arrived." When Empress Xiao heard that her youngest son had arrived, her eyes immediately sharpened. "Greetings to grandmother, father, mother. Eldest brother." That brat Mou's voice could be heard even before he arrived. Just hearing his voice made one feel especially energized. "You still know to come back," Empress Xiao muttered in annoyance. Chapter 985. The youth's black hair was buried under a small jade crown, and he was dressed in a light-colored, narrow-sleeved riding suit with a purple gold belt. His figure was outstanding, and he was handsome and straight. When he walked quickly through the door, there was a faint smile on his lips, and his eyes seemed to be sparkling and dazzling, as if there were stars flowing in them. "Greetings to the 12th prince." The row of palace maids by the door bowed in greeting. Mou waved his hand and swayed to Mo Yen's side, happily shouting, "Eldest brother. The moment I entered the capital, I heard that you had engaged the crown princess. I want to see my sister-in-law. I know it's her. My peaches are finally going to be settled." This brat had been thinking about a peach for 7 to 8 years. There was no one else like him. Mo Yen's mouth twitched. Without waiting for him to speak, Empress Xiao said with a straight face, You're really becoming more and more unbecoming. Not to mention running around all day, you even went to the mountain villa to disturb your grandmother's peace." Mou hurriedly smiled and moved to his mother's side. "Mother, grandmother has been praising me the whole way. If I didn't run to the mountain villa to celebrate the new year with grandmother's new year would have been so boring." Empress Xiao glanced at him and snorted. She raised a finger and poked his head. "Didn't grandmother find you noisy, so she brought you back early?" "Of course not." Mou's mouth seemed to be smeared with honey as he grinned. "This son missed father, mother, and eldest brother, so I begged grandmother to come back. Imperial mother, imperial father, eldest brother, although you, isn't in the capital, my heart has always missed you." His father chuckled, clearly not believing his youngest son's nonsense. Empress Xiao was a little happy from her son's coaxing, but she still kept a straight face. She glanced at her youngest son, but the corners of her mouth couldn't help but curl up slightly. The old Empress Dowager said with a smile, "You don't say. If you, didn't run to the mountain villa to accompany me, this New Year's celebration would indeed be lacking." Empress Xiao said with a smile, "Imperial mother's complexion is rosy and her breath is soft, you must be recuperating well in Ziyu Mountain Villa." "Not bad." The Empress Dowager smiled benevolently and nodded. Ziyu Villa is secluded from the world. Its profound energy is also rather dense. It's truly the best place for cultivation. If there is a chance, Your Majesty and Her Majesty can also choose a day to go there and take a break for a period of time. The Empress Dowager is right. The old Great King looked at his mother cautiously and asked, "Mother, have you made some progress in your cultivation?" "You can say that I've made some small achievements." Back then, the Empress Dowager had taken up a spear and mounted a horse to conquer the world with the former king and the old vassal king of Nan, so her martial arts were naturally outstanding. She had stayed at the initial success stage of level 14 Great Mystic Cultivator for nearly 10 years. After cultivating in seclusion at Yushio Villa for half a year, the Queen Dowager finally made a small step forward and entered level 14 Phenomenal Success stage. The Great King's face lit up with joy when he heard this. "Congratulations, Mother. Your cultivation has improved again." "Congratulations, Empress Dowager." At the Empress Dowager's level of cultivation, she had long been indifferent to these things. She smiled and waved her hand. "Let's not talk about these things." She turned to look at Mo Yen. "Today, as soon as Ijia and you entered the capital, Ijia heard rumors spreading from all directions. Nimpan Tower is our Mo Kingdom's guardian pagoda. What do they mean by a sorcerer has appeared recently, so the world is bound to suffer a calamity? They even said that Nimpan Tower's foundation is unstable and seems to be swaying. What kind of nonsense is this? It's simply a bunch of nonsense." Chapter 986. Grandmother, don't worry. These are just rumors spread by some bored people. Grandson will deal with it properly. Yes, yes. Mother, don't worry. The old king added, "This is all because a few days ago, there was a rat infestation near the Pacification Pagoda. A large rat gnawed on a brick behind the Pacification Pagoda, causing people to mistakenly say that the pagoda's foundation was unstable or that a demon had appeared." A faint light of wisdom flashed through the Empress Dowager's eyes. Why would there be a rat infestation in the capital out of the blue? I'm afraid that someone is secretly manipulating things behind the scenes. Great King, you have to pay attention to this matter. Don't throw everything to the Crown Prince. Look at how busy my grandson is. The great king coughed a little awkwardly and secretly ridiculed in his heart. He knew it. As long as his mother returned, she would definitely protect him to the end. There was nothing to say about this that he felt like a son that was picked up from the streets. When he was young, the Empress Dowager helped him take care of state affairs. Now that he was old and his son was very capable, the great king was very used to being a hands-off boss. Now that he heard the Empress Dowager specifically asking him to deal with the rat infestation rumors, the great king felt very vexed and secretly glanced at his son. Prince Mo's handsome face was extremely serious. He didn't even look at his old father. This unfilial son who cheated his father. The great king gritted his teeth. Cough, mother, you're worrying too much. The crown prince has more or less taken care of this small matter. You don't have to worry about this. Let the young people train. The great king hurriedly helped his mother up with a guilty conscience and helped her into the inner room. He flattered her all the way and completely ignored the Empress Dowager's rolling eyes. Father is so cowardly. Mou pursed her lips. Suddenly, her large eyes lit up slightly. She jumped in front of Mo Yen and said, Big brother, take me to see sister-in-law now. You child, you're always so careless. Your big brother doesn't have as much free time as you do. Stop messing around. Empress Xiao reprimanded Mou. As soon as Mo Yen thought that his wife had run away, he felt a little irritated. He got up and excused himself from Empress Xiao. Then he went out and left. Big brother, what's wrong? Mou blinked and asked subconsciously. Empress Xiao waved at him. Mother, Mou jumped in front of Empress Xiao with a big smile, and her head fell into her mother's arms. Empress Xiao's anger, which had accumulated over the past few days, was instantly extinguished by her youngest son's tantrum. She poked his head and said, fortunately, you still have your mother in your heart. Otherwise, who knows when you will return to the palace? Of course not. No matter where her son went, he would always think of her. I even brought a lot of local specialties for her. I'll get someone to send them to her in a while. Empress Xiao was amused by her son. She pulled his hand and asked, from your tone just now, you called her sister-in-law quite warmly. You've known that Miss Qiao for a long time. I've never met her, but I've heard of her. Mou said unhappily at the mention of this. When I was 5, sister-in-law gave Big Brother a peach. Big Brother treasured it so much. He couldn't bear to give it to you, That peach looked really delicious. Empress Xiao was dumbfounded. What peach? Her youngest son had been thinking about it since he was 5. Mother, you've met my sister-in-law, right? What does she look like? She does look pretty good. Empress Xiao nodded affirmatively. It was just that her personality was cold and arrogant, cruel and heartless. She really wasn't much of a person. Chapter 987. The little girl whom Empress Xiao had called a good-for-nothing was currently in the land of inheritance opened by the startled swan dagger, studying the elixir inheritance left behind by her master, Long Chuyun. There were a large number of spirit stones and an inheritance jade slip in the space ring. After the inheritance jade slip was absorbed into Arbor's conscious, it passed on the inheritance carved on the jade slip to her, just like the golden talisman jade tome. For the past 2 days, Arbor had been quietly studying the elixir refinement techniques left behind by her master in the land of inheritance. The knowledge about elixirs that Long Chuyun had sorted out was very systematic and comprehensive, starting from the basics to the basics and easy to understand. Qiuqiu had said that she had memorized countless medical classics and the Holy Scroll of 10,000 poisons, but many of the knowledge points were not connected with the elixir prescriptions and medicine here. For example, the name of the medicinal herbs. She remembered one name in her mind, but in reality, it could be called by another name here. In this way, it was a little confusing. Previously, she was not too sure, But now that she thought about it, the reason why she had such a complex and terrifying foundation in medicine was probably because she had learned from her master when she was in soul form. She had probably learned a lot when she was in soul form. The Golden Talisman Jade Tome might also have something to do with it. Now that she had inherited Master Long Chuyun's elixir inheritance, she could compare the two and make a judgment if she had any questions. It would be convenient for her to cultivate medicinal herbs and make elixirs in the future. Although she could make an accurate judgment based on the characteristics, shape, size, and so on of the medicinal herbs, the names of the herbs here were different. After all, the names of the medicinal herbs here were different from what she had learned in the past. It was indeed a little troublesome to apply them. After Arbor had carefully sorted out Long Chuyun's inheritance and compared 80 to 90% of it, she put it aside for the time being. She had promised Mo Yen that she would return within 3 days. If she returned late, that person would probably be anxious. She went to the elixir room on the left and looked at the rows of elixir bottles on the shelves. She casually opened a bottle and sniffed it. 100 Treasures Elixir. Arbor's expression changed slightly. This was a type of elixir that could regulate the body's qi and blood. It was hard to get even with money. Ordinary people could extend their lives if they took it. Life-prolonging elixir. Level 12 Mystic Breakthrough Pill. Arbor muttered to himself as he tidied up the small medicine bottles on the shelf. His intuition told him that this Master Long Chuyun was definitely a nouveau riche. The little monk followed beside her and asked cutely, "Benefactress, are we going to leave after you're done packing up?" "Yes." "If we don't leave, are we going to stay here forever?" Arbor put all the bottles into the interspatial ring that his teacher had given him, and touched the white ring on his finger. "But that old Taoist priest is eyeing you like a tiger watching its prey," the little monk said with a worried expression. "Benefactress, you make people worry too much." Arbor couldn't help but twitch his mouth. He raised his hand and patted little Baldy's head. "You look so old. You're only 4, not 40. After the new year, he's already 5 years old." The little monk immediately corrected her. His face was filled with a solemn expression that said, "I'm no longer a child." Arbor found it funny. After tidying up the elixirs here, she pulled his little hand and walked towards the thatched hut on the right. Pushing open the door of the thatched hut on the right, a burst of medicinal fragrance wafted out. Arbor stood at the door and looked at the large herb garden in front of her. Chapter 988. She took a step back and exited the door to take a look. And it was a shabby straw hut. After walking through the door, it was as if she had entered a strange herb garden. Patches of spirit herbs and exotic flowers were in full bloom. This time, Arbor was in a bit of a dilemma. This herb garden was at least 20 mu of land. With her strength alone, how long would it take for her to finish digging up all these spirit flowers and herbs? And the problem was, where should she store them? Some of these herbs had been removed from the soil and could not be stored for long. They would wither after a while. If that was really the case, then wouldn't it be a waste of effort for her to dig them out with no place to store them? If only the little tree was awake. At this moment, Xiaomu missed Qiuqiu from the bottom of her heart. It was a pity that Qiuqiu was still in seclusion and did not move at all. Arbor heaved a long sigh of relief and sat down cross-legged, attempting to refine the mystic energy in this mystic realm. Since she was going to leave, then she should not waste the mystic energy here. She wondered if she could refine this mystic realm without relying on Qiuqiu. If only she could refine it successfully like she did in the paradise. These herbs could be temporarily kept here. When Qiuqiu woke up, she could transplant them into the herb garden in the paradise. With this thought, Arbor had already sealed off her 5 senses and silently entered the state of refining mystic energy. The little monk and Qing Yuan squatted on her left and right and watched her. Big brother Qing Yuan, benefactress can't be thinking of directly refining this mystic realm of inheritance, right? Qing Yuan glanced at him and could not help but raise her brows slightly. Little monk, you know quite a lot. Of course, this little monk can be considered someone who is familiar with thousands of sutras. I also know a little about various famous people and anecdotes in the pugilistic world, the little monk said calmly. Qing Wan instantly did not want to talk to him anymore. This child was not cute at all. She felt that he was so intelligent that he could surpass an adult. He was simply too precocious. But the little monk could not stay idle. Big brother Qing Wan, do you think benefactress will succeed? Of course. You have so much confidence in her. She's master. Of course, I have full confidence in her. Qing Wan glanced at him angrily, retracted her gaze, and silently guarded Arbor. What about the old Taoist outside? The little monk frowned and said, I can guarantee that he is still outside waiting for us to walk right into his trap. Qing Wan was silent. The little monk cutely said, I've heard Master talk about it before. If you crush a refined secret realm, even a spirit realm great spirit master might not be able to deal with the energy generated. That old Taoist's cultivation is probably suppressed to around the 15th level of profound strength. He definitely won't be able to withstand the explosion of the secret realm. Qing Wan stared dumbfoundedly at the cute little monk with red lips and white teeth. Aren't you supposed to be a benevolent monk? What are you talking about now? Are you instigating murder? Why was he able to understand them when they were separated, but when they were pieced together, he couldn't understand anything? The little monk was still as calm as before. He blinked and looked at Qing Wan. Why do you look so surprised? He was just stating the truth. With just the three of them, it would be difficult enough to deal with the old Taoist alone. Unfortunately, the old Taoist had an eagle-faced ferocious beast by his side. As he spoke, the entire secret realm of inheritance trembled slightly. The little monk suddenly stood up. Qing Wan also jumped up. It's going to collapse. Chapter 989. This land of inheritance was not even 1/10 the size of the previous land of Peach Blossom, so the mystic energy it contained was naturally incomparable to that of the land of Peach Blossom. Arbor opened her inner vision and could see the endless mystic energy from all directions pouring into her Dantian star field, where it was ultimately all absorbed by the sapling. Arbor's heart jolted. Perhaps, even if the sapling had entered a deep sleep, it could still instinctively absorb the mystic energy from the outside world and refine the secret realm. As expected, as time went by, 80 to 90% of the mystic energy in the entire land of inheritance fell into the sapling's stomach. In the midst of the tremors, the land of inheritance collapsed bit by bit. Having experienced the refinement of the land of Peach Blossom and the collapse of the secret realm, Arbor was not worried at all. After opening her eyes, she grabbed the little monk with one hand, and the three figures instantly disappeared into the slowly collapsing secret realm. A lustrous white bead appeared in Xiao Mu's hand. Inside the bead was a small bamboo forest, and three small thatched cottages could be faintly seen swaying back and forth inside. At this moment, Arbor had no time to be excited or agitated. She first put away the heart of the land of inheritance in her hand and directly put it into her inner world. At the same time, she took out a startled swan dagger. With a turn of the dagger, she directly swiped it in a direction in the air. The old Taoist's outer robe was cut open by Arbor's sharp dagger, and he glared at her with sharp eyes. Without another word, Qing Wan immediately spread its wings and swiftly picked up its little master, flinging her and the little monk onto its back. With a shriek, it rushed into the heavens and swiftly fled the scene. The old Taoist simply did not expect that this little fellow Arbor would actually escape on Qing Wan without another word. He was so angry that his nose was crooked. He had circled around this mountain forest for nearly 3 days. In the end, he did not dare to go too far from this place, so he had been waiting at the secret realm where the three of them had disappeared. In the end, he had indeed waited for them to come out. But he did not expect that the three of them would be so wretched. They actually fled without a word the moment they came out. Was this something a great talisman practitioner and great mystic cultivator could do? It was simply outrageous. The old Taoist aggressively stepped on his eagle-faced ferocious beast and commanded it to give chase. Damn Arbor, let's see where you can escape to. A fierce glint flashed through the old Taoist's eyes as he berated the eagle-faced ferocious beast to chase the three people in front. Both his hands slightly raised, accumulating mystic energy in his body. His entire body began to swell up like a bloated ball. His entire body was filled with terrifying power. His green Taoist robe fluttered in the fierce wind. Standing on Qinghuan's back, Xiaomu naturally saw the old Taoist's menacing pursuit. She unhurriedly opened up an eggshell defensive barrier and coldly looked back at the stinky Taoist who was chasing after her. Waves of ferocious profound energy rose from his entire body as tiny streams of water flowed out from his palms. Subsequently, they condensed into strings of sparkling ice crystals. In an instant, the ice crystals turned into hexagonal snowflakes, which she abruptly raised her hand and swiftly charged toward the old Taoist. The old Taoist saw that she was very cowardly and ran away the moment she left the secret realm, so he thought that she did not dare to fight him. Who would have expected that she would actually attack? Looking at the ferocious snowflakes flying toward him with a whoosh. They directly hit his green Taoist robe. Ha! The old Taoist roared. Chapter 990. The muscles under his outer robe bulged, and this old Taoist instantly circulated his level 15 cultivation, releasing his mystic energy outward. It collided with a handful of snowflakes that Arbor darted toward him. After several slashes, the old Taoist's eyes widened in disbelief as he stared at his outer robe that had been cut open. Even his arms under his outer robe were actually sliced open by the snowflakes, and blood flowed down. He was actually injured by a mere level 12 mystic cultivator in a single exchange. Arbor didn't say a word. Her combat habit was that she absolutely wouldn't waste words with you once she started fighting. Her fingers moved slightly as she guided several talismans, and more than a dozen high-level attack talismans flew toward the old Taoist's face as if they didn't cost anything. At the same time, under Arbor's command, Qinghuan turned around and flew toward that eagle-faced beast. She spat out an icy wind and snow rain at the eagle-faced beast's head. On the side, the little monk silently formed several Buddhist seals. At this time, Qinghuan and Arbor couldn't care less about him. One flew toward the eagle-faced beast to attack. The other instantly left Qinghuan's back, activated the defensive barrier, and rushed to the old Taoist with several large strides in the air. The old Taoist was simply flabbergasted. Didn't this damn lass run away just now? He thought she was scared, but what was going on with her turning around and charging here without any regard for her life? How could she know that Arbor didn't want him to see her put away the heart of the inheritance secret realm and cause unnecessary trouble? That was why she wanted to leave this place and return to the capital as soon as she came out. Moreover, she had promised Mo Yen to return to the capital within 3 days. Now that 3 days had passed, if she still didn't return, she would definitely be nagged by her family non-stop. She couldn't be bothered with this damn old Taoist, but in the end, she saw that the old Taoist was following behind her like a fly that she couldn't shake off. Her anger rose as well. What? Could it be that she was afraid of this damn old Taoist? Let's fight then. Let's see who would have the last laugh. She really hadn't been afraid of anyone after being reborn for so long. Did he really think that she couldn't kill him? 7 or 8 years ago, he dared to challenge a group of heroes by himself. How could he be afraid of a mere Taoist now? What a joke. What the little monk said was both right and wrong. The combined cultivation of the three of them was indeed inferior to the old Taoist and the eagle-faced beast. But could it be that this was all she could bring out? Other than her cultivation, she also had all kinds of divine weapons and spiritual treasures. Her actual combat ability really couldn't be judged by her cultivation level. Arbor had already jumped in front of the old Taoist priest. Suddenly, he turned a black ring on his hand. They were very close, and the old Taoist priest saw her movements clearly. For some reason, his eyelids twitched. Hee hee. Arbor let out an almost cold and flat laugh. He suddenly raised his hand and opened the Imperial Thunder Barrier, trapping the old Taoist and the eagle-faced beast. The man and the beast were suddenly enveloped in a translucent light shield, and their expressions were somewhat dumbfounded for a moment. Spirit weapon. The little monk cheered, and his cute voice hurriedly said, "Benefactress, since you have a spirit weapon in hand, why didn't you take it out earlier?" Master was too lazy to pay attention to him in the first place. Qing Wan snorted and said, "It was he who insisted on coming to court death." The old Taoist priest and the eagle-faced beast, who were being bombarded by bolts of lightning in the Imperial Thunder Barrier, roared angrily. The old Taoist priest's eyes were extremely vicious. He glared at Arbor through the translucent barrier. "You think you've won?" Chapter 991. The defensive thunder barrier formed a small spiritual domain of its own, caging the old Taoist and the eagle-faced beast inside. Arbor had no intention of paying any attention to the old Taoist through the translucent defensive thunder barrier. After sending a strand of mystic energy inside, the defensive thunder barrier was filled with the violent power of lightning, and it directly struck the old Taoist and the eagle-faced beast with a series of crackling sounds. A hint of shock flashed through the old Taoist's vicious eyes. This spiritual weapon is so powerful, but where did it come from? He truly didn't know that this little girl had unwittingly grown to this extent in a few short years. If he had known, he would have directly killed her back then instead of allowing her to grow. Anger flashed through the old Taoist's eyes. It was his fault for being careless. A level 12 mystic cultivator with the ability of an advanced great talisman practitioner, with the divine beast Qingwan, spiritual weapons, and magic treasures, and even possibly comprehended the wood spirit's origin. Was this possible? Although it was very surprising that she successfully triggered her mystic meridians at the age of 7. What future could she have in a small place like the lower star domain and in a lousy village like Kwoto village that lacked mystic energy? It would already be pretty good if she could become a level 4 or level 5 mystic cultivator at most 10 years later, okay? But in these 7 to 8 years, the damn girl actually grew to become a level 12 mystic cultivator. It had to be said that he was completely surprised. What exactly was the reason? She was merely an ordinary village girl. He wouldn't believe that she didn't have a great opportunity even if he was beaten to death. The old Taoist's face darkened. With a rub of his hands, spiritual energy permeated his chest, forming a partial armor that first protected his heart meridian. It was evident that the old Taoist was a spiritual cultivator, and partial spiritual energy armor was one of the hallmarks of a spiritual cultivator. However, the old Taoist's current cultivation was suppressed to that of a level 15 mystic cultivator, but it didn't mean that he couldn't use spiritual energy. Arbor felt that this old Taoist's body exuded a trace of wickedness and strangeness. Logically speaking, he was already a spiritual cultivator and had entered the spiritual realm, but he just happened to merge with the power of a demonic beast and become a demonic cultivator. Just like how Commandery Princess Hui and didn't hesitate to merge with the power of a demonic plant and ultimately turned her body into a withered cocoon, the old Taoist in front of him merged with a demonic beast and formed a beast claw on his chest. At this moment, he was using this beast claw to resist the lightning bolts that were bombarding him from all directions. This defensive thunder barrier actually required spiritual energy to activate, but unfortunately, Arbor just happened to be able to use profound energy to activate the defensive thunder barrier. Furthermore, she was now able to skillfully switch between the profound energy in her 3 branch meridians and the main meridians. It could be said that as long as she wasn't beaten up by thousands of people, her profound energy would basically never be interrupted. The profound energy that was channeled into the defensive thunder barrier soared, and the lightning inside the small spirit domain was released in a dense interweaving manner. Even with the body of a spirit master, the old Taoist found it difficult to bear the impact of such powerful lightning, let alone his eagle-faced Xian beast. After dozens of lightning bolts struck the eagle-faced beast's body, the pair of crippled wings in front of its chest were blasted into a bloody mess. the eagle-faced beast lay on the ground, gasping for breath. It covered its head with its other wing and lay there motionless. Just now, this ferocious beast had almost injured her Qingyuan. Now, it was blasted to the side by the powerful lightning released from the defensive thunder barrier. Arbor didn't have the slightest bit of sympathy. If they hadn't pursued her relentlessly and tried to kill her, she wouldn't have retaliated out of anger. Chapter 992. Let the mystical beast core in this eagle-faced beast benefit her pitiful little white squirrel. Arbor's eyes flickered, and a dim light flashed past. A suction mystic energy in her hand instantly sucked the eagle-faced mystical beast, who was caught off guard in the defensive thunder barrier, to her feet. "Awoo!" The eagle-faced beast roared angrily, and was about to raise its wings to slap over. The little monk, who had been silently forming Buddha's hand seals, quickly reached out his small palm, and a golden swastika character smashed directly on the eagle-faced beast's head. With a loud bang, the pitiful eagle-faced beast was pressed to the ground by this swastika character. Qingyuan flew up and hurriedly gave the eagle-faced beast 2 more stabs without any explanation. "Leave its head," Arbor reminded in a slightly anxious manner. Qingyuan paused and carried the eagle-faced beast, which was on its last breath, over. Arbor was expressionless. The startled swan dagger in her hand flashed slightly, and directly cut open the eagle-faced beast's head, cutting out a red crystal core from within. This mystical beast core was redder and more outstanding than any crystal core she had seen before. It was like a ruby, emitting light in her hand. The deeper the color of the crystal core, the higher the level of the mystical beast. This crystal core was equivalent to 100 ordinary level 10 mystical beast cores. Arbor was in a slightly better mood, and directly stored this mystical beast core into her inner world. The old Taoist, who was still in the defensive thunder barrier, was furious. He could only watch as his mystical beast's brain was cut open and its crystal core was taken out. He couldn't break out of the defensive thunder barrier to react. His mystical beast was already completely dead. When a mystical beast died, it was bound to bite its master. This time, the old Taoist was injured. He was anxious, angry, and resentful. A mouthful of old blood instantly spurted out, and his face was as white as a sheet of gold paper. "Ah!" the old Taoist roared angrily. He didn't think that he would encounter such a disaster just because he personally took care of a little village girl. Did he underestimate the enemy, or did the enemy grow too strong? The demonic beast's claws on the old Taoist's chest desperately scratched the translucent barrier, trying to tear open the defensive thunder barrier to let it out. Unexpectedly, Arbor poured another burst of profound energy into the defensive thunder barrier. At this moment, she had already transferred the profound energy from the 3 branch meridians and directly poured it in. In an instant, the entire small spirit domain was filled with the light of thunder and lightning, leaving no room for anyone to fight back. The crisscrossing lightning in the domain formed the shape of a well and cut straight toward the old Taoist. It was really a cut. The old Taoist priest watched as a piece of bone and flesh on his shoulder was completely cut off by the lightning. He did not dare to be careless anymore. Using his spirit armor to protect his chest, he then filled his entire body with profound energy and let out an angry roar. His cyan Taoist robe fluttered by the waves of profound energy, forming a barrier that blocked the intertwining lightning that covered the sky and covered the earth in the miniature spirit domain. However, because of the profound beast's backlash, he had already been injured. At this moment, he had expended a large amount of profound energy to resist the lightning. He could resist it for a while, but he couldn't resist it forever. If this continued, he would definitely be annihilated by the lightning. Therefore, he was anxious and embarrassed. He tightened the movement of the sharp claws in front of his chest, fiercely scratching and smashing the defensive thunder shield. However, was a spirit artifact so easy to destroy? If it could be destroyed with just a few hits, then it wouldn't be called a spirit artifact. Cough, cough, cough. The old Taoist priest was in an extremely sorry state, and a mouthful of blood foam spurted out from his mouth. Chapter 993. Perhaps even he himself hadn't anticipated that he would be heavily injured by someone when he originally wanted to exterminate Arbor in this wilderness. Ah! The heavens didn't open their eyes. How could they treat him like this? Cough. The old Taoist spat out another mouthful of bloody foam, and his head turned black. He looked coldly at Arbor through the translucent defensive thunder barrier. Could it be that he had to use that secret technique today? Damn it! If he didn't handle it well, he would be obliterated by the heavenly Tao. Cough, cough, cough. The old Taoist flipped his left hand and took out a white jade bottle from his inner world. He poured out 2 or 3 pills and stuffed them into his mouth without even looking. Arbor's gaze abruptly landed on the white jade bottle in the old Taoist's hand. A sinister chill flitted across her originally tranquil little stoic face. When she looked at the old Taoist again, her placid eyes were suffused with an ice-cold ruthlessness from the depths of hell. At this time, the old Taoist had already been cut by the defensive thunder barrier to the point that there wasn't any flesh left unscathed. Apart from his chest, which was well protected, the rest of his limbs and body had been cut quite tragically by the lightning. His entire body was covered in wounds, his hair was disheveled, and his green Taoist robe was soaked red with blood. Arbor's fingers moved, and the translucent defensive thunder barrier was instantly undone by her. She moved again, and a long green vine appeared between her fingers, which she flung toward the old Taoist with a swish. This time, the old Taoist reckoned that even if he didn't die, he would lose half his life. How would he dare to take it head-on? He directly rolled on the ground and dodged this vine whip attack. Arbor's fingers moved slightly, and several dozen immobilization talismans directly split open in the air and stuck to the old Taoist. Now that the old Taoist was heavily injured, the immobilization talismans would definitely obstruct him if they landed on him. Even if they couldn't immobilize him, they could delay his movements for a moment. That would be enough. Priest Dayu destroyed several immobilization talismans in exasperation, only to feel his body uncontrollably pause twice. And just as he was flustered, 2 whips of vines were viciously whipped. His back was whipped by 2 vine whips at the same time, causing his entire body to tremble in pain. He grimaced in pain, and his eyebrows were knitted together. At this time, Arbor stepped down step by step from the air, a vine whip in each hand. He swung it very flexibly, attacking with both hands at the same time. The old Taoist priest looked at the little girl in front of him. His brows were tightly knitted together, and his pupils constricted. The wood spirit energy on the vine whip was so dense that even he couldn't tell what level of wood spirit origin it was. It should not be lower than the 6th level of the wood spirit. Thinking of this, the old Taoist's forehead was covered in cold sweat. He couldn't hesitate any longer. He lowered his head in silence. A few seconds later, he raised his head again. His eyes were covered with a layer of green light, and his aura changed instantly. Be careful. He has advanced. The small monk shouted. Arbor secretly opened his spiritual eye and instantly saw that the profound energy in the thief's body was increasing rapidly. His entire profound veins instantly turned into red spirit veins, and then a wisp of fiery red spirit energy could be seen flowing happily inside. The basic red was naturally one of the 5 spirits, the fire spirit. As expected, a streak of fire swept out of the old Taoist priest's hand in the next instant, pouncing straight at the vine whip in Arbor's hand. Once the green vines were touched by the fire, they suddenly burst into flames and burned fiercely. Arbor snorted. At the same time that he threw the vine whip in his hand, he raised his hand slightly. Then, 7 to 8 green vines drilled out from all directions and shot towards the thief. Chapter 994. With a shout, the Taoist abruptly flung off his cumbersome, tattered green robe. His hands directly grabbed 2 balls of fire as he charged at Xiao Mu. Arbor didn't even look at him. She raised her hands again and dozens of green vines wrapped around the old Taoist's hands and feet. A small stream of water appeared in Arbor's hands and turned into a shimmering ice sword. She rushed forward and slashed the ice sword at the old Taoist. Hee hee. Little ant, you dare to show off in front of this old man. The old Taoist shouted and the fire spirit in his hands expanded. It turned into 2 fire sparrows and flew toward Arbor's small body. The little monk flicked his finger and threw out 2 flames to block the fire sparrows. However, the flames were swallowed by the fire sparrows released by the old Taoist. The little monk's cute little face turned pale. Qing Wan hurriedly picked him up and put him to the side. Don't move, she told him and turned into a big bird. She flapped her wings and flew toward her master. Don't come over. Xiao Mu's eyelids twitched, and she had already leaped into the air. After a floating flash, her figure had already disappeared from her original spot. The fire sparrows pounced on empty air. They turned around aggressively and rushed toward the old Taoist. The old Taoist priest was shocked. He suddenly turned his head and a fist landed on his face with a bang. The little hand with the Vajra talisman attached to it made the old Taoist feel very good. The figure that retreated was swallowed by the fire sparrows. However, the fire sparrows were created by the old Taoist. At the critical moment, he dispersed the fire spirit energy and the fire sparrows disappeared. Priest Dayu wasn't injured by the fire sparrows, but he fell from the sky and landed heavily on the ground. At the same time, countless twisting vines darted over and quickly wrapped the Taoist into a cocoon. His face, his face, his face. His face hurt too much. This was a real slap to the face. Oh, no, it was a slap to the face. The small hand that had the Vajra talisman attached to it was stronger than any jade in the world. It was originally the weakest part of the body, the face. Being hammered by Arbor like this, the old Taoist would die of pain in minutes. At this moment, a green vine appeared in Arbor's hand again, and he whipped the old Taoist in the face. Ah! Priest Dayu's face was already caved in by Arbor's punch, and now, a bloody mark was left on his face by Arbor. From the tip of his left eye all the way to his right chin, an oblique whip mark appeared on his face. Dao Immortal Dayu had never suffered such humiliation in his life. At this moment, he covered his face and rolled back and forth on the ground. Ah! 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 The green vines tightly bound the Taoist priest. No matter how hard he struggled, he could not break free from the vines. A stream of water poured out from Arbor's hand. The moment the water condensed into ice, she moved like a flood dragon. An ice sword instantly plunged into the old Taoist priest's shoulder and rotated. The old Taoist priest suddenly cried out in alarm. This ice sword directly sliced off both of the old Taoist's shoulder blades. Xiao Mu expressionlessly walked up and stomped on Priest Dayu's chest. Arbor pressed down hard and said in a cold voice, "Don't waste your energy. You've basically used up all the spiritual energy in your body. Right now, you're weaker than a weakling." Chapter 995. Ah! The old Taoist let out a cry of pain, causing the beast claw to emerge from his chest. Arbor directly reached out and forcefully twisted that beast claw, using all her strength to tear it apart. Rip! A large piece of flesh was torn off from that beast claw. This ferocious energy made the little monk and Qing Wan, who were quietly following behind, both shiver all of a sudden. Ah, 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 ah. This time, the old Taoist suffered twice as much. Not only did his face hurt, but even his chest hurt unbearably. His entire aura instantly withered, and he breathed heavily, his voice hoarse. Good, good, you stinky girl, you are indeed a ruthless character. Cough, cough, cough. Arbor's small face was expressionless, adhering to her usual style of never talking nonsense with a defeated opponent. She directly opened her spiritual eye and scanned the thieving Taoist's inner world. She guided her spiritual sense into the other party's inner world and plundered him without warning. Ah! The Taoist was completely stupefied. He only felt waves of stabbing pain in his conscience, his head swollen and dizzy, as if he was going to faint in the next second. Compared to the inner world of the Pei family's second madam before she plundered, this thieving Taoist was already a spiritual master, and his conscience naturally couldn't be compared to second Madam Pei's. Arbor could be considered to have spent a lot of effort. Her spiritual sense endlessly seeped in, and a faint trace of sweat also seeped out of her forehead. Suddenly, she flipped her palm. Crackling like rain, the door to the old Taoist's inner world was forcefully plundered open by her. The items in the inner world were all overturned, and all at once, they all poured out. Seeing this, the little monk couldn't help but shiver, and exchanged glances with Qing Yuan at the side. So scary. Ah! The old Taoist's aura became more and more dispirited, and his entire person blankly rolled his eyes, lying on the ground dripping with stinky sweat. It was as if he was fished out of a river, as if there was a flood, and his entire body was soaked in blood and sweat. Arbor ignored the other items in his inner world. She didn't bother to look at those precious treasures or magnetite precious ores. Her gaze fell on a few of the white jade porcelain bottles. With a suction force, one of the porcelain bottles jumped into her palm. She held it in her hand, her gaze lightly caressing the white jade porcelain vase. His cold gaze landed on the old Taoist, and his voice was icy cold. "You're that wandering Taoist. You're the traveling Taoist who gave Wen Ruan the meridian pill." As soon as he finished speaking, the old Taoist shuddered. For a moment, he could not restrain his emotions. A look of surprise appeared in his old eyes, and it was all seen by Arbor. This was a tacit agreement. "Why did you do this?" Although Qiao Mu appeared unperturbed on the surface, her heart was actually in turmoil. "Why?" she repeated again, a trace of cold anger floating under her flat voice. "Pa!" A heavy slap landed on the Taoist's face from a distance. Qiao Mu raised her voice slightly and reprimanded coldly, "Are you deaf?" "Cough, cough, cough." Priest Dayu sneered, and his body trembled on the ground. He swept a disdainful glance at Arbor. "Do I have to answer just because you asked? Will you let me go if I answer?" Dictum talismans. Arbor never liked to talk nonsense with people. She directly threw out 3 dictum talismans, and with a flick of her sleeve, "There's one more. Don't wait for me." Chapter 996. The dictum talismans flew past like 3 streaks of light and landed on Taoist Dayu's body. A dictum talisman could make someone with a lower cultivation than her obediently speak the truth. Taoist Dayu's cultivation was above hers, but she had crippled him and nearly crushed his conscience. His current cultivation was already as miserable as a dog's, so the dictum talisman should be effective. However, seeing that his previous cultivation was already in the spiritual realm, she generously threw 3 dictum talismans at him. One of them should work, right? Nearly 3 minutes later, a faint light suddenly flashed between the old Taoist's brows. The talisman had taken effect. Arbor sighed in relief, but the vines she pulled out didn't relax in the slightest. She had always been a cautious person. Even though she seemed to have the upper hand right now, she definitely wouldn't let her guard down. "Were you the one who gave the meridian pill to Wen Ruan?" "Yes," the old Taoist answered honestly with a slightly dazed gaze. "When did you give it to her?" "When?" 8 years ago. "Why did you do that?" Arbor tightly clenched her fists. Her heart was filled with rage. It was as if something was burning at the bottom of her heart, burning away all her intermittent thoughts. She seemed to have smelled a hint of a terrifying conspiracy. Could it be that when Ruan was instructed by someone to deliberately get close to father in both her previous and current lives? "Why? Why did you do that?" "It was you. You deliberately had Wen Ruan approach our Qiao family." Arbor's breathing became slightly hurried. That's right. However, this old man was also entrusted by someone. Arbor's pupils contracted slightly. She took a step forward and forcefully grabbed the old Taoist's chest. Speak. Give me a clear explanation. Who entrusted you? Who? Who entrusted you? Who the hell are you? The thieving Taoist was a bit dazed, seemingly unable to accept so many questions all at once. Who the hell are you? Flames of fury ignited in Arbor's eyes. I am the deputy manager of Shuntian Prefecture. A bolt from the blue. Could it be that the tragedy in her previous life wasn't a coincidence? Arbor's heart trembled, and he shuddered for no reason. Could it be that all her tragedies in her previous life, the tragedy of her family, were all controlled by someone else from afar? However, the trajectory of this life had been forcefully reversed by her. Because when Rowan had died many years ago, it was impossible for her to harm their family. As such, Taoist Dayu could not wait any longer and wanted to personally deal with her. But why? Their Qiao family had been living in Quoto village dutifully all this while and hadn't offended anyone. Why did they scheme against them so viciously since 7 to 8 years ago? Who instigated him? Hurry up and tell me. Who sent you to deal with our Qiao family? It was our Shuntian Palace's palace master who sent me to the lower realms Starfield. No matter what method I use, I will definitely make your family's lives miserable. It would be best if your entire family was crippled. In other words, when she was 7 years old, Shuntian Manor had already been eyeing their family? I originally thought that you were just a little village girl in a village. When Rowan received benefits from me, so she naturally obeyed my orders. With her scheming methods, a casual move from her could make your family live in an abyss of suffering from then on, the Taoist answered honestly. However, I didn't expect. The situation was completely out of his control. Chapter 997. To be precise, someone didn't wish for you to have a good life. As for those useless Qiao clan members around you, they were just dealt with in passing. Priest Dayu continued to reveal the truth of the matter. I was only following orders. Dayu was also very regretful now. If he had not been so lazy back then and casually found a useless thing like when Rowan to deal with the Qiao clan, the situation would not have reached this uncontrollable stage. Not only did when Rowan fail to cause trouble, but she also threw herself in and inexplicably became the zombies' food. From then on, the situation became uncontrollable. You unexpectedly joined the Holy Water sect and became the personal disciple of the First Peak's Peak Master. This is completely different from what our mansion master wants to achieve. The higher-ups felt that I was incompetent, so they sent Manager Lu to assist. Your joining the Holy Water sect was the first variable. Afterwards, Manager Lu sent our Shuntian Prefecture disciples to Shizhou City to keep a close eye on your parents. Arbor's heart skipped a beat when he heard this. What's your relationship with Lu Yizhi? Dayu mechanically recited with an old-fashioned expression, Lu Yizhi is our prefecture's third manager. I used to be under his supervision, but we were considered equals in the lower star domain. Continue speaking. Priest Dayu continued, the batches of people we sent to Shizhou City to keep an eye on your parents were all secretly disposed of by someone. We later found out that it was His Highness the Crown Prince of Mo Kingdom who did it. As for you, you actually received the favor of Mo Kingdom's Crown Prince and even became the Crown Princess. This was the second variable. When this news reached the prefecture lord's ears, he was very displeased. You slaughtered the Holy Water sect because you didn't want me to have an easy time? Arbor unconsciously clenched his fists, almost unable to restrain his fury and trembling. Unexpectedly, Priest Dayu shook his head and replied in an old-fashioned tone, that's not it. Lu Yizhi accidentally discovered that your Holy Water sect had the existence of sacred water. Lu Yizhi wanted to seize the sacred water purely to satisfy his own selfish desires. It was absolutely impossible for him to hand over the sacred water he seized to the prefecture lord. He would even do his best to conceal this matter. Why would he do that? A trace of bewilderment appeared on Arbor's small face. So she was actually a marionette in someone else's hands in her previous life. If others wanted her to live a miserable life, she had to live a miserable life. If others wanted her to live a miserable life, she had to live a miserable life. At this moment, she suddenly realized that her previous life's trajectory was actually carefully planned for her by someone, but her heart was still very confused. Wouldn't that Shuntian Prefecture's prefecture lord just directly kill her and be done with it? Why did he have to play such a clumsy game with her? I won't let you have it easy. Moreover, she simply couldn't remember where she had offended this Shuntian Prefecture's prefecture lord to the point that he had started scheming against her 7 or 8 years ago. In his previous life, he simply did not have the strength to offend this high and mighty Shuntian Prefecture's prefecture lord. In this life, her enmity with the Shuntian Prefecture all originated from the destruction of the Holy Water sect during the Golden Hairpin era. In other words, before the age of 12, she had never interacted with Shuntian Prefecture. She was completely unclear as to why the Shuntian Prefecture's prefecture lord had such great enmity and hatred. When she was 7 years old, he already wanted to make her have an easy time. This kind of hatred was actually enough to cause this Shuntian Prefecture's prefecture lord to be unwilling to let her off for 2 lifetimes. Chapter 998. Arbor took a deep breath and asked coldly, "Tell me clearly. Is it only your Shuntian Prefecture's prefecture lord who doesn't want to let me live well?" At this moment, the old Taoist showed signs of struggle. This was a sign that he was about to wake up. Arbor raised her finger and sent several dictum talismans flying onto him. However, it was too late. She didn't know if the old Taoist was experiencing terminal lucidity. In an instant, he woke up with a start. His blank expression abruptly turned sinister in the next second. "Damned girl, what did you do to me?" Priest Dayu only felt a tearing pain in his chest, making it impossible for him to take a deep breath. In addition, there wasn't a single piece of unharmed flesh on his body from the lightning, and his shoulder blade had been gouged out by that savage girl. The old Taoist knew very well that his current situation was very bad. With his current half-crippled body, he was absolutely no match for this savage brat. "You'd better tell me clearly. Otherwise, I'll make you beg for death. I'll make you regret coming to this world." Arbor raised her finger slightly, and a pill appeared in her fingers. This was the latest poison concocted from the 6-yang poisonous flower. Its effect was better than the heat poison in the beautifying pill. After taking it, it could make one's skin blister as if it was scalded. She only needed to use some medicine to keep the old Taoist half alive, and he would experience the feeling of his wounds never healing, of rotting, breaking, and being whole again. Don't worry, she wouldn't let him die so easily. This feeling of dying but not dying, of lingering at death's door, she would let him experience it. The old Taoist's eyes narrowed slightly, and he called out stubbornly, "Didn't you use some tricks just now?" "I've said everything I should say, you." A slight ripple suddenly appeared in the air. Arbor was in the state of opening her spiritual eye. She could actually clearly see 17 or 18 transparent chains extending from the air. They uniformly swung around the old Taoist's limbs and body, tightly binding him. The old Taoist was probably stunned at this moment. He felt that his limbs couldn't move, and his entire body seemed to be bound by something. A flash of inspiration appeared in his mind. He immediately thought of something, and his expression changed in a flash. He looked at Xiao Mu in horror and harshly shouted at her, "Hurry, hurry! Help me! Help me! You're a great talisman master, so you must have some talisman that can undo the binding. Quick, hit me! Help me!" "Ah!" Arbor stared at him indifferently as if he was looking at an idiot. "Tell me clearly, who doesn't want me to live a good life? Is it really the Shuntian Prefecture's prefecture lord?" How could the old Taoist have the time to answer her question at this time? He screamed like a ghost as he struggled against the invisible chains. He looked at Xiao Mu in panic and pleaded, help me first. Heavenly Tao, ah. He used a secret technique to forcefully break through the limits of the lower star field and rush into the realm of a level 3 spirit master. He had a sliver of hope that the Heavenly Tao would not find trouble with him. After all, his cultivation had been suppressed to the initial level of the spirit realm, so it wasn't very eye-catching. He didn't use a secret technique to directly raise his cultivation to the advanced level of the spirit realm and enter the realm of Great Spirit Master. How could raising his cultivation so stealthily attract the attention of the Heavenly Tao? Pain suppressed his entire body, and the majestic and heavy pressure of the Heavenly Tao firmly enveloped his body. I'll tell you the truth, why save me, save me. Chapter 999. Arbor saw that he was pressed to the ground by an invisible force, and he was wretchedly crawling on the ground with his 4 limbs. She couldn't help but sneer. Forget it. I don't think you have anything else to tell me. As for what I want to ask, when I find your prefecture lord in the future, I'll naturally be able to ask him clearly, right? Did the Shuntian prefecture lord have a natural enmity with her? Or was the prefecture lord instructed by someone else? Wouldn't it be better to ask the prefecture lord himself? Shuntian prefecture, whether it was a personal grudge or a sect grudge, would have to face them in the future, right? Rather than interrogating someone who only knew a little, it was better to save the effort and watch the show. After figuring this out, Xiao Mu couldn't be bothered to spare Priest Dayu even half a glance. Let him live or die on his own. No, you can't just watch me die. How can you just watch me be destroyed by the Heavenly Tao's might? You despise the Heavenly Tao and suppress it for it. Who can help you? If you dare to do it, you have to dare to admit it. Isn't it better to just accept death? Arbor's cold voice slowly seeped into Priest Dayu's ears. He was clearly an old monster that had lived for such a long time. How could he not understand such a simple principle? Humans, no matter how strong they were, would always show a timid state in the face of death. Priest Dayu raised his eyes to look at Arbor's cold face. His entire body trembled, and he was paralyzed on the spot as if he had lost his parents. No one could defy the Heavenly Tao's might. He was formless, colorless, and soundless. He wasn't in any of the 5 forms, and no one could even recognize him with the naked eye. However, he was such a terrifying existence. At this moment, he was using a formless and enormous power to crush Priest Dayu into a pile of minced meat bit by bit. Noiselessly, it was also extremely fast. Under the tyrannical restriction of the Heavenly Tao, Priest Dayu's entire person suddenly disappeared. From his body to his soul, he suddenly disappeared from the world. This was the Heavenly Tao's might. It could destroy you in a matter of minutes without leaving a single bone behind. Arbor shook his head, speechless. Priest Dayu was probably the kind of person who wouldn't seek death if he didn't seek it. If it wasn't for him pursuing her relentlessly earlier, she wouldn't have turned around to counterattack, and she wouldn't have forced him to utilize a secret technique to advance his cultivation and infuriate the Heaven Tao. Serves you right. At this moment, Xiao Mu was actually rejoicing in her misfortune. There was a large pile of inner world items on the ground. The old Taoist had quite a lot of private goods. There were precious treasures, magnetite pills, and even some oddly shaped forging materials. Arbor was an honest child. He took all the inner world items left behind by the old Taoist without hesitation. After tidying everything up, she took the little monk's hand and jumped onto Blue Wan's back. Let's go back to the capital. Fortunately, he had plundered all the items in the old Taoist's inner world. Otherwise, if he had been destroyed by the Heavenly Tao, the items in his inner world would have naturally been destroyed along with him. Arbor sat on Blue Wan and rushed towards the Mo Kingdom capital. Before he could fly out of the Hulun mountain range, he saw a blazing light from afar, enveloped by an ancient golden dragon, flying toward him at high speed. Presumably, the Crown Prince couldn't restrain himself after seeing that the 3-day agreement had passed and ran over to find her. Arbor urged Blue Wand to fly over quickly. When green and red converged in the sky, Arbor suddenly jumped up and pounced straight at Mo Yen on the dragon's back. Chapter 1000. Mo Yen reached out and firmly caught her small body that was pouncing over, his figure as immovable as a mountain. The man's light breath drifted over her face. Without waiting for her to speak, he lowered his head and bit her little mouth. Their lips and teeth rubbed against each other as he aggressively pressed down on her repeatedly. It was like he was rushing to be bitten. Arbor was dumbfounded. She instinctively reached out to press against his chest and tilted her little head back slightly. Mo Yen didn't let go of her waist. Instead, he leaned forward with the momentum, practically crushing this little one's waist. This action was actually quite difficult. Moreover, the two of them were in the air and could only hear the whistling of the wind. They didn't even have a protective shield. However, Mo Yen's figure was still standing steadily, not affected in the slightest. Arbor protested in a muffled voice. She used all her strength to finally separate from him and sealed his lips with her little hand. Mo Yen, listen to me. I'm listening. Mo Yen pulled down her little hand and looked at her deeply. Arbor was suddenly speechless. What do you think? Ah. Cough cough. Strange. After being interrupted by him just now, she didn't even know what she wanted to say to him. Why aren't you saying anything? Prince Mo reached out and caressed her little face. He looked so gentle, but Arbor inexplicably felt that the person in front of her was unhappy. Why was he unhappy? She had already said goodbye before leaving. Oh right, I left you a letter. Did you see it? Arbor suddenly reached out and hugged his waist. She buried her face in his chest and rubbed against him. This trip back to Hulun Mountain was actually to find Teacher's mystic realm of inheritance. This trip was quite successful. You've been quite busy these few days, so I thought that I could make a trip alone. Those few words count as a letter for me. Mo Yen raised his eyebrows and looked at her with a half-smile. Arbor rubbed his nose awkwardly. She had only written a letter to explain the situation. Besides, she didn't know how to write a long letter. Mo Yen held her chin and said, Jojo, you're really good at running away. If I didn't pay attention, I would have let you escape. Arbor blinked. I didn't run. Leaving those 2 or 3 words for me counts as a warning in advance. Mo Yen looked at her with a grin. The latter shrunk his head and subconsciously leaned back. The man in front of him looked dangerous. That's not just 2 or 3 words. That letter was clearly around 20 words in total, right? Xiao Mu muttered softly. Mo Yen remained silent. She lowered her head and looked at her. Let's go back to the Eastern Palace. When night fell, Qiao Zhongbang and his wife received a message from the Crown Prince. The Crown Princess had been found and would be staying the night in the Eastern Palace. At this moment, the little fellow was sitting in his arms. She grimaced as she held a brush and stared at the dozens of pieces of white paper spread out in front of her. Crown Prince Emo personally grasped her small hand that was holding the brush, teaching her stroke by stroke how to write the so-called, leave a letter. First of all, she had to change the way she addressed him. She had to call him husband, or dearest husband, or Lien. She couldn't call him by his full name. Xiao Mu felt so bitter. This crown prince, didn't he have a lot of work to do? Why did he have the leisure to hold her and teach her a letter for half a day? Can you write now? The crown prince tilted his head and looked at the little one in his arms with a smile. Chapter 1001. Nodding, Xiao Mu quickly picked up her brush and wrote a voluminous and emotional letter to him. Crown Prince Emo carefully perused it for several minutes before folding the letter in satisfaction and putting it away close to his body. He lowered his head and smiled at her. His eyes were so gentle that they seemed to melt into spring water. Jojo. Arbor's little body trembled for no reason. Next time, will you just throw a letter to me and run away? Xiao Mu very honestly shook her head vigorously. I won't. I knew my Jojo was the most obedient. Mo Lien pinched her little face and carried her to the bed. I was just thinking that you've been very busy recently, so I didn't want to cause you any trouble. Arbor mumbled softly. Besides, I'm very familiar with Hulun Mountain. Jojo, you still don't understand my heart. Don't you understand? Prince Mo placed her on the bed and looked at her seriously. No matter how busy I am, your matters are more important than anything else. Arbor's eyes lit up and she reached out to hug him. I understand. Even if I have something to do in the future, I'll tell you personally, okay? Mo Lien lowered his head to look at her small face. He only felt that this little one looked very delicious under the dim yellow light. The light in his eyes deepened. Prince Mo sat on the bed and sighed. Although you've only been away for 4 days, I still miss you. When he thought about how the little fellow was going to enter the secret forest realm again, and the crucial point was that she still needed a month's time, Mo Lien's heart was filled with all sorts of unpleasant feelings. I miss you too, Arbor said casually. When Mo Lien heard this, a smile instantly blossomed on his handsome face. He pulled her into his embrace and said, I really missed you. You little heartless one, you were merely coaxing me in passing. Don't think that I don't know. Is there anything you want to tell me? Speaking of this, Xiao Mu was a bit pleased with herself as she recounted her gains from the secret inheritance realm to Mo Lien. When she talked about how she was chased by the old Taoist halfway, how she fought with the old Taoist, and how the old Taoist was destroyed by the heavenly Tao in the end, she was beaming with joy and gesticulating. Hence, Mo Lien kept gazing at her with a serene gaze. This child's eyes were practically glowing when he talked about fighting. Just how battle-hungry was he? Shuntian Prefecture and I will not rest until one of us is dead. Arbor felt as if he had swallowed a fly when he thought about how that manor head had schemed against him in both of his lives. All right. He responded in a low voice. Reaching out, he hugged her and said softly, don't worry and fight boldly. No matter what, I will be by your side, accompanying you and protecting you. She turned to look at him, her eyes sparkling. Lien. What I said just now was not to coax you, Arbor suddenly said. Mo Lien was slightly startled, but after pondering for a moment, his pair of phoenix eyes blossomed with a resplendent light as he gazed at her tenderly. Lowering his head, he pressed his lips against hers, lightly planting a kiss on her soft, small mouth. With just a light touch, he felt his body going limp. He involuntarily drew in his arms and rubbed the little fellow's soft body. Just now, when the little thing said, I miss you too, to him, it was said very seriously. It was not just to coax him. Chapter 1002. In a remote corner of Chonghua Palace. Ah, ah. Screams continuously rang out from a side room. Fortunately, this place was extremely remote. Usually, even birds would be too lazy to fly by here, so no matter how much Zhengru screamed, no one would come to pay attention to her. Mammy Su worriedly looked at Zhengru, who was rolling back and forth on the ground in unbearable pain. She wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes, her heart unable to bear it. Mama, what's going on? My face, my... Ah! Zhengru threw herself in front of the dusty bronze mirror and saw her own rotting and swollen face. She lightly scratched with her fingernails, and a lot of dusty skin flakes fell from her face, as if her entire skin was about to split open. Ah, Mama. Zhengru shrieked, didn't Sir He say that my body would completely recover after eating that super resurrection pill? Why did it become like this now? Why did her condition start to relapse when night came? Her beauty no longer existed. Mammy Su secretly glanced at Zhengru with pity. Xiaoru, do you still remember Sir He's instructions? I remember. He told me to think of a way to deal with the crown princess within 7 days. I know. It must be Sir He reminding me to deal with her as soon as possible, so he gave me a warning every day. Zheng Ru angrily threw the bronze mirror to the ground. But that slut actually left the capital on her own. Because of this, the queen must be dissatisfied in her heart. At first, the crown prince had planned to conceal it for her and only say that she was recuperating at home. It was she who found out that the wretched girl had already left the capital a few days ago and wasn't at the Marquis of Jiayuan's estate at all. 7 days. 4 out of 7 days had already passed, and there wasn't much time left. That damned brat. If she didn't come back, how was she supposed to deal with it? Mammy Su hesitated before saying, Xiao Ru, I heard that the crown princess was brought back to the Eastern Palace by the crown prince this evening. Are you serious? Come back. It's good that you're back, it's good that you're back. Zheng Ru relaxed a little, but the itching pain on her face was unbearable. She hurriedly said to Mammy Su, go get some ice cubes for me to apply a cold compress. Her face was so itchy that she wanted to die. It was unbearable. Mammy Su's expression turned ugly. Xiao Ru, you're no longer the consort Zheng from back then. It's already not bad to be able to transfer them out of the woodshed. Zheng Ru's expression was ferocious. That's because they know that one day, I will regain the divine grace. Mammy Su sighed. Everything has been arranged for tomorrow. You only have one chance, Xiao Ru. Seize it. The next morning, after breakfast, Arbor sat obediently in the main hall and waited for Prince Mo to return from morning court. The two of them boarded the carriage to return to the Marquis of Jiayuan's estate. Qiao Zhongbang and his wife had been waiting for them with open doors since early in the morning. Now that they saw that their daughter was safe and sound, they couldn't help but grumble about how risky the child was. As Wei Ziqin held Xiao Mu's small hand, she inadvertently looked down, and her gaze landed on the lustrous white ring between Xiao Mu's fair fingers. Her expression changed drastically, and her body trembled involuntarily. She held Arbor's hand and couldn't help but ask, Jojo, where did you get this ring? Is it this? Arbor didn't hide it and immediately said, I inherited it from an elixir teacher. Time to end the nap. Chapter 1003. Teacher. Wei Ziqin stared blankly at her daughter, then excitedly held her little hand and asked, Jojo, what do you mean? You've inherited the alchemy skills of that master? Wei Ziqin's eyes lit up almost instantly as she looked at her daughter. Her expression was indescribably happy. Before Arbor could step through the door, her mother stopped her at the door and questioned her repeatedly. Mother, what's wrong? Every time she mentioned alchemy, her mother would get excited for no reason. Just like last time, when her mother accidentally found out that she was an alchemy master, her mother actually solemnly ran to tell her father about it. The couple really did open the ancestral hall to pay respects to their ancestors. It was too exaggerated. Wasn't it just becoming an alchemy master? Did her mother have to bring up something like an ancestor's spirit or something like that? On the side, Qiao Zhongbang shook his head in amusement. Let Xiao Ma and our daughter come in first. Okay. Wei Ziqin held Arbor's hand and stepped over the threshold together. Mo Lian and Father Qiao found a place to sit down and chatted for a while. Wei Ziqin continued to nag her daughter. When she found out that her daughter had gone to that alchemy master's mystic realm of inheritance, Wei Ziqin's eyes flashed and she asked anxiously, that alchemy master, you saw him with your own eyes? Arbor felt that her mother was acting a little strange and couldn't help but ask curiously, Mother, do you know him? Wei Ziqin suddenly felt that her expression was a little exaggerated and hurriedly covered it up with a smile. She waved her hand and said, Silly child, I'm just an ordinary village woman. How could I know the alchemy master you're talking about? As she spoke, Wei Ziqin's gaze fell on her face, a faint smile on her face. Qiao Mu pouted her small mouth. Mom, you look so happy that I thought you found an old friend. Wei Ziqin smiled but didn't reply. Yet Xiao Mu continued to murmur to herself, teacher passed away all alone in her secret inheritance realm. I'll have to bury her properly later. Wei Ziqin's eyes suddenly became watery. She quietly turned around and wiped her eyes with the handkerchief in her hand. Mom, what's wrong? Arbor leaned over to look at her. Mom, why are you crying? Where is mother crying? Wei Ziqin forced out a smile and tugged at her daughter's small hand. Mother only feels that you and that alchemy grandmaster are extremely fated. I'm afraid that this is fate predestined by the heavens. Wei Ziqin's voice was slightly choked, and a wave of tears welled up in her eyes. She held it back and said, Mother just feels very happy. Mother. Arbor couldn't help but laugh. He reached out to hold her arm and said, why does mother cry when she's happy and sad? Stinky girl, you're even making fun of your mother. Wei Ziqin poked his daughter's head and then said seriously, your master's burial is a big deal. Why don't you have your father help you with it? This is your master, so she has to be buried in a dignified manner. Arbor pursed his lips. Mother, I want to bury teacher beside the sect. It was on the slope of the peach blossom garden that her teacher was laid to rest. Wei Ziqin's eyes reddened slightly, and she wrapped her arms around her daughter's shoulders and said softly, that's good too. If your master knew in the afterlife, she would also feel gratified. To be buried next to the holy water sect's deceased masters. Arbor nodded and met Wei Ziqin's eyes with a smile. Chapter 1004. On the other side, when the father-in-law and son-in-law saw that the two women, one big and one small, were actually getting sentimental as they spoke, they promptly changed the topic. Qiao Qiao, you'll be preparing to depart for the Mystic Beast Forest's secret realm in 4 days. You have to make ample preparations. It'll take 2 months for a round trip to that place. Arbor turned to glance at her father and nodded. In reality, there wasn't much to prepare. Arbor only wanted to draw more talismans before setting off in case of emergency. The 4 people were chatting idly when He Zi hurried in. He hastily saluted everyone and then said to Qiao Zhongbang, husband. Sun Yang just came to report that. He Zi stole a glance at Wei Ziqin and Arbor before bracing himself and saying, she said that old madam is about to die and wants to see husband and madam before she passes away. Qiao Zhongbang abruptly stood up and then heaved a long sigh. Wei Ziqin then stood up and said, husband, then let's make a trip over. Regardless of how old madam acted, as her son and daughter-in-law, going over to see her before she passed away could be considered fulfilling their filial duty. Arbor actually knew that her father had previously gone to beg the crown prince for his grace, allowing old madam to remain in the Mo kingdom capital. The rest of the Qiao clan, as well as Su Jiao's family of 3, had all been exiled to the northwestern desert. There was probably no possibility of them returning in this lifetime. Arbor also knew that her father had settled old madam in a small residence on Hualing Street, but she didn't say anything. Because her father wanted to fulfill his filial duty for his mother, this was a matter of course. As a daughter, what could she say? Her father had been this simple, honest, and even somewhat stupidly filial person in both lifetimes. Perhaps this was precisely what Madame Nei Wei admired about him. Arbor already didn't want to comment on whether old madam was good or bad. Arbor also didn't want to meddle in her affairs anymore. After sending his parents out, Arbor had nothing to do. When he turned around, Mo Yen grabbed his little hand. Not happy. Mo Yen's eyes moved, and he reached out and gently pinched her little face. You don't have any expression. When have you ever seen me with an extra expression? Arbor didn't want to pay any attention to him. He put his little paws behind his back and walked towards his Nanzhu garden. Yeah, Jojo smiles when he's happy. When she's unhappy, she'll pull a long face. Arbor, humph. Mo Yen chuckled. She held her little hand and walked with her on the path covered with soft leaves. I remember when you were young, you weren't cute at all. Not only is he expressionless all the time, he also doesn't say anything and makes me guess. It's a good thing this prince is smart. With just one look from you, I immediately understood. I understood it so well. Arbor turned her little head to glare at him. Then she said unhappily, I went to see old madam. She quietly went to see her without alerting anyone. At that time, she knew that old madam wouldn't live for long. She was just a normal person. Following third uncle's family, she didn't eat or sleep well for a long time. Her body's organs had deteriorated beyond recognition in a short period of time. Even after her father brought her to the residence on Hualing Street, no matter how much she nourished her body or how much she called a doctor, it was useless. Unless she was given a life-continuing pill, which could extend her life for at least 3 years. The life-continuing pill that her teacher made was a top-grade black-veined pill. Chapter 1005. This pill was meant for people who were about to die. It was not like the longevity pill, which was used to warm and nourish the body. The effects of the pill were mild and could be used slowly. This life-extending pill was like a needle that stimulated the heart meridian. It could immediately extend a person's life for 3 to 5 years, but that was all it could do. When the life extension period was over, even Daluo immortals could not save the old lady. Also, if she were to do it, she could carefully give the old lady acupuncture for a period of time and then use the longevity pill mixed with various other medicines to nurse her body back to health. It was not impossible to save the old lady. At least, it could definitely extend her life. But she wanted to. Isn't my heart especially ruthless? I'm a tiger and a wolf. I bite whoever I catch, am I not? Arbor lowered her head and hid the coldness in her eyes as she asked Mo Yen. Not ruthless. Mo Yen shook her head. Didn't you ask me if I believe in karma? I do. Mo Yen nodded without the slightest doubt. He held her small hand as he said softly, she treated you and your family like this before. Saving her shows that you're kind. Not saving her doesn't show that you're ruthless. The cycle of karma was all about retribution. If the old lady had not caused so much trouble in the past, she would not have ended up like this. She had even wiped out the filial piety of Qiao Zhongbang and his wife. Now, the two of them were willing to go to Hualing Street to see her one last time just to fulfill their wish. Even if you're a tiger and a wolf, you're the tiger and wolf cub that I like the most in the world. Mo Yen suddenly reached out and lifted the little one up. Arbor was caught off guard. She hurriedly wrapped her arms around his neck and glared at him with puffed cheeks. Put me down. Mo Yen shook his head and said seriously, I'm not putting you down. What do you want to eat tonight? I'll cook for you. Arbor snorted. Braised eel, braised catfish, vinegar fish slices, spiced mutton braised sirloin, braised prawns with 3 delicacies and 8 treasures. Qiao Mu recited a long list of dishes, and Mo Yen nodded his head repeatedly. Afterwards, he couldn't resist asking, why are they all meat dishes? What is Kong Kong eating? Make him some vegetable soup. Go with a bowl of white rice. Mo Yen giggled. Suddenly, a voice of protest sounded, benefactress. My meal is too crude. Arbor's mood improved slightly. He reached out and punched Mo Yen. Put me down. No. Mo Yen carried her all the way to Nanzhu Garden. What soup are you drinking? On the other hand, Qiao Zhongbang and his wife arrived at a house on Hualing Street. Sun Yang came out to greet them. Madam, old madam wants to talk to you alone. Wei Ziqin nodded mildly and followed Sun Yang into a small room in the south. The old lady was lying on the bed. 2 pillows were under her head. When she saw Gun Yanji walk in, she perked up slightly. Where's Arbor? Where's that wretched girl Arbor? The old lady wailed. I'm about to die. How can she bear not to see me? Wei Ziqin held her breath and clenched her fists. Jojo is cultivating in seclusion. Old madam, if you have anything to say, please speak. Old Madam Fu coughed heavily a few times and pointed at Wei Ziqin. You, all of you, are very good. Things had already come to this, but the old lady still did not like them. Chapter 1006. Since that was the case, why did she say that she wanted to talk with her face to face? Wei Ziqin wanted to throw a tantrum and leave on the spot. However, considering the elderly lady's health, she probably wouldn't be able to say much more, so she forcefully swallowed her anger. She stepped forward and bowed to the old madam before saying indifferently, Old madam, just say what you want to say. This daughter-in-law still has many things to do at home. You. The elderly lady pointed at Wei Ziqin and said with a furious expression, Do you really think I don't know? Arbor, she isn't my biological granddaughter at all. Wei Ziqin abruptly raised her head and stared wide-eyed at the thin elderly lady on the bed. You're such an unruly woman. I don't know what method you used to bewitch my son. My son originally had a great future. He was recognized by the main family at a young age and even entered the Daybreak sect. If he wasn't assassinated later on, he wouldn't have returned to the village and married a lowly woman like you. You're merely a servant girl who serves others. The elderly lady pounded the bed and angrily said, You even deceived our Zhongbang and cuckolded Zhongbang. I don't know where you got this bastard from. You shut up. Wei Ziqin shouted angrily. How could this small courtyard be soundproof? Everyone outside could hear her clearly. Fortunately, there was only one Sun Yang standing in this small courtyard. At this time, she had already retreated outside with a shocked expression. Xiao Zhongbang hastily pushed open the door and entered. Ziqin, what's wrong? Mother, what are you two doing? He hastily closed the door behind him and ran to his wife's side. Looking at the elderly lady's trembling body, he said with a long sigh, Mother, what are you saying? Ziqin has been filial to you for so many years. Don't tell me you still can't see clearly what kind of daughter-in-law she is. Your actions not only chilled Ziqin's heart, but also our son's heart. Zhongbang, you're the one who doesn't see clearly. The elderly lady pounded the bed and cried herself hoarse. For a bastard, you drove your own younger brother and nephew to a place like the northwestern desert. Do you still have a conscience? Mother. Zhongheng and his wife abused you until you're emaciated and on the verge of death, but you still think they're good. No matter what we husband and wife do, you think we're bad, isn't it? Xiao Zhongbang asked in a low voice. I don't care. Xiaolong is my grandson, I don't care what method you use, whether it's begging or kneeling, you have to get His Highness the Crown Prince to let our Xiaolong come back. The elderly lady to Zhongheng and Zhongheng to Zhongheng's to Zhongbang to Zhongbang to still make her to Zanto Zhongheng. Moreover, how could Xiao Mu, that bastard, be worthy of becoming the Crown Prince consort? Mother to mother to mother to mother twos to mother to Zha. Mother. Son twos to mother. Wei Ziqin's face was also flushed red. Her eyes were filled with tears as she clenched her fists. You too. You unfilial son and daughter-in-law. The elderly lady spat out a mouthful of blood. She pointed at Xiao Zhongbang and cursed, You muddle-headed worm. Your wife secretly gave birth to a daughter long ago behind your back. If you don't want people to know, then don't do it in the first place. Arbor isn't your biological daughter at all. I know. Xiao Zhongbang's furious shout instantly silenced all of elderly Lady Qiao's words. The elderly lady's face was filled with disbelief, as if she couldn't understand his actions at all. Chapter 1007. Qiao Zhongbang clearly knew that this daughter wasn't his biological daughter, yet he still feigned ignorance. Was he an idiot? Had he been raising someone else's daughter all this time during such a difficult time? Ziqin was entrusted with an orphan's care. She told me this clearly before she married me in town, Qiao Zhongbang said with a sullen expression. Your son doesn't know when you found out, mother. Could it be because of this that you've always been hostile to them? Madame Qiao sighed in anger and collapsed on the bed. However, she seemed to feel much better after spitting out the congested blood in her chest. However, Qiao Zhongbang and his wife could clearly see the glimmer of light in Madame Qiao's eyes. Mother. You've really misunderstood Ziqin. She definitely didn't do anything out of line. She's a good woman. In your son's eyes, she's the best woman in the world. Wei Ziqin looked back at her husband with tears in her eyes. It's only in recent years that our lives have quietly improved. Before that, during the most difficult, tiring, and darkest days, your son was always accompanied by Ziqin. Mother, it's because I rejected the marriage you arranged for your son and brought Ziqin and her mother back to the village. All these years, you've always felt uncomfortable in your heart, haven't you? Qiao Zhongbang looked at Madame Qiao as he spoke. Unfilial son. Madame Qiao collapsed on the bed angrily, but she hammered the bed with her arms. Fine, fine, fine. This old one was meddling in other people's business. If you like to raise someone else's daughter, then so be it. But, Xiaolong, you must bring her back. You raised Arbor for so many years for nothing, and all you did was ask her to do a trifling matter. It's nothing. Wei Ziqin sneered. Madam, don't worry. Qiao Zhongheng's family of 3. Don't even think about coming back in this lifetime. A cold light shot out of Wei Ziqin's eyes as she coldly shouted, Your grandson, Qiao Long, is destined to die in the northwest desert. His body will be buried in the wilderness, dried up and shattered by the wind, and not even his bones will remain. After saying that, he turned around and left, not looking at the old lady again. Ah! The old madam pounded the bed angrily. Her eyes rolled and her lips trembled as she shouted, Wei Ziqin, come back here. Wei Ziqin. I want to see Arbor. I want to tell her. She's not a member of the Qiao family. What right does she have to send my grandson to the northwest desert? She was just an adopted daughter. What right did she have to let the Qiao family's direct descendant wander outside? How could a little bastard like her be so capable? Ah! Qiao Zhongbang's eyes were red. He clenched his fists and roared, Shut up! Can you stop messing around? Arbor is my daughter. Don't call him a little bastard. You. Unfilial son, you unfilial son. The old madam couldn't catch her breath. She opened her mouth and let out a shrill cry. Her old eyes stared fixedly at the curtains on the bed. Gradually, her voice quieted down, and her breathing also stopped. Qiao Zhongbang walked out of the door dejectedly. Suddenly, he seemed to have lost all his strength. He hugged his wife and the two of them burst into tears. Ziqin, your husband has really failed as a person in this life. I didn't expect that my mother would still criticize me and call me an unfilial son on her deathbed. Husband. Wei Ziqin shook her head and placed it in his embrace. She cried as she said, It's okay, it's okay. It'll all pass. It's okay. Qiao Zhongbang glanced at the side room with disappointment. He softly said to the servants outside the courtyard, Start the funeral. Chapter 1008. Father and second uncle had personally taken care of the matriarch's cremation and funeral. Arbor didn't pay much attention to it, and Qiao Zhongbang and his wife had also ordered that the matter of what had happened in the courtyard on Hualing Street that day be sealed. Thus, Arbor didn't know that the matriarch had caused a ruckus before she passed away. She was only following etiquette and fulfilling the filial piety of an eldest granddaughter for outsiders to see. To put it bluntly, the matriarch's funeral wasn't that big of a deal. Everything was proceeding in an orderly manner. Arbor had been drawing talismans for the past few days when she was free. Today was the day of the matriarch's funeral. Arbor and his siblings, along with their parents and second uncle, had been busy until now. They had just eaten a small meal when someone hurriedly came to report that someone from the palace had come. Arbor didn't even lift her eyelids. She still leaned against the small couch and rested with her eyes closed. "I'm tired." "Go and reply to her. Just say that I'm in mourning for my grandmother's death. I'm afraid that I'll disturb the nobles if I enter the palace and bring bad luck to them." "Yes." Xiao Yao immediately curtsied and then hurried out. The green mammy, who was by the queen's side, was standing outside the door. She had a slightly arrogant expression on her face as she slightly raised her head. "What did the crown princess say?" Xiao Yao repeated Arbor's words in a manner that was neither servile nor overbearing. The green mammy snorted. "That's true. Then this old one will go back and report." Xiao Yao suddenly grabbed the green mammy's wrist. She stretched out her leg and kicked the old matriarch, causing her to fall face first into the mud beside the flower pot. "It seems that you haven't bowed to my master yet." Xiao Yao crossed her arms and glanced coldly at the green mammy from the corner of her eyes. "Kowtow 3 times before you leave. So that people won't casually say that the people by Her Majesty the Queen's side are unruly. They don't even know the slightest bit of etiquette when they see the crown princess. It would be a disgrace to Her Highness's name." The green mammy's old face was ashen. She gritted her teeth and knelt down in a huff. She unwillingly kowtowed 3 times to the tightly shut door. The humiliation in her heart spread. There was no need to mention how angry she was. She thought about how she would scold the crown princess in front of the empress when she got back. Xiao Yao approached the old woman, frowned and sneered, "Be careful. The sword in my hand doesn't have eyes. Be careful not to slit your throat." Green Mammy was so scared that she couldn't help but take a step back. "If I find out that you dare to talk nonsense in front of the queen, I won't just make you kowtow and apologize next time." Xiao Yao pulled out the shiny flexible sword from her waist and directly brandished it in front of the Green Mammy to intimidate her. The Green Mammy hurriedly shrank back and smiled apologetically, "Of course not. Miss Xiao Yao, you really know how to joke. Whether I'm joking or not, you know clearly in your heart. My master isn't someone that an old hag like you who likes to cause trouble can afford to offend." Xiao Yao kicked her butt. The old woman opened her mouth to exhale, but she felt a pain in her mouth. A pill slid down her throat. "Ah, ugh, cough, cough." The old woman's face turned green with anger. She covered her throat with both hands and turned back to ask in horror, What did you make me eat?" Xiao Yao chuckled and opened her mouth, "Poison. Don't worry. As long as you behave, this poison won't act up for the rest of your life." Xiao Yao sent the old woman out with a smile and then returned to Arbor's side. Chapter 1009. You've sent her away. Arbor didn't even raise his head as he flipped through a page of the book. "Amen. She's gone." Xiao Yao giggled. This old woman was scared out of her wits by the poison that Miss bestowed upon her. "I'm afraid that she won't dare to say anything when she returns this time. She's always staring at me with that disgusted and disdainful gaze. Did she think that I couldn't see it?" Arbor reached out to take the medicine bottle that Xiao Yao handed over and expressionlessly said, "If she's still disobedient, then I'll let her slowly go blind. In any case, her eyes aren't that useful to her." Xiao Yao pursed her lips and chuckled. "That's right." Arbor didn't say anything else and leaned against the couch to continue flipping through the handwritten medical records that Long Chuyun had left behind. Long Chuyun had traveled to many places before. Not only was she skilled in pill refinement, she was also proficient in toxicology. She had learned a lot from reading her handwritten medical records and had benefited a lot. In the evening, Prince Mo came over. The moment he walked into Arbor's Nanju Garden's small courtyard, he huffed angrily as he lifted his robes and sat down beside her couch. Lord Father is simply too much. To be able to make you this angry, it must be your old man who's muddle-headed again. Arbor put down a handwritten poison manual and glanced at Prince Mo before handing him a small teacup. Speak. Prince Mo took it, his eyes full of anger. That muddle-headed old man. He was casually fooled by someone and his heart softened again. Arbor straightened up and looked at him curiously. Could it be Young-hee? She was released from the cold palace again. The Great King definitely loved Young-hee. With how much the Great King had doted on Young-hee over the years, if the Crown Prince told her that the Great King had released Young-hee again, she wouldn't be too surprised. Not really, Mo Yen held Arbor's little hand and squeezed it gently, but it's not far off. It turned out that for some unknown reason, the Great King had coincidentally passed by the back door of Chonghua Palace and happened to see Young-hee dressed in plain white sitting under a withered old tree. She held a brush and was scribbling something with a pious expression. It was said that the Great King was mesmerized by the scene. Young-hee was mesmerized by it. She wanted to show off her filial piety. Young-hee's gentle and beautiful white figure entered the Great King's heart again. The Great King quietly got out of the carriage and went over to take a peek. It turned out that Young-hee was using her heart's blood to copy a copy of the Ksitigarbha Sutra, secretly praying for the country, the Empress Dowager, and the Great King. The Great King quietly asked Mammy Su about it. It turned out that Young-hee had been copying sutras and praying for blessings under the tree day and night for 3 full days and nights. She was so devoted that she even forgot to eat or sleep. Mammy Su even wiped her tears and told the Great King that Young-hee had already recognized her past mistakes. In the future, she would definitely turn over a new leaf and do things properly. The Great King was deeply moved. He glanced at the stack of hand-copied sutras beside Young-hee's hand. He also saw that her clothes were thin and she only had a simple hairpin inserted into her hair. She looked extremely gentle and lovely. His heart couldn't help but be moved. Arbor listened to the Crown Prince's story as if he was listening to a story. He couldn't help but curiously widen his large eyes and ask, and then the Great King brought Young-hee out? He didn't. Mo Yen said irritably, he wanted to take it. That would depend on whether he had the face to do so. He's going to go get her now. He personally ordered that person to be thrown into the cold palace. How long had it been and he wanted to bring her out? Wasn't that a slap in the face? Did he still want his old face? Chapter 10:10. The little fellow gazed at him with sparkling eyes, and she reached out to touch his displeased handsome face. The Crown Prince was startled, and then he laughed heartily as he plucked this little fellow onto his lap and rubbed her in passing, returning the favor. Xiao Yao happened to be stepping into the room at this moment, and she couldn't help but purse her lips in amusement when she saw this scene. She immediately tactfully turned around and retreated out the door. All right, there's no need to stand here. Go do your own things. Xiao Yao waved her hand at the rows of junior royal maids standing outside the door, and everyone naturally dispersed. Mo Yen hugged the little person in her arms and reached out to peel pine nuts for her to feed. Has there been any movement from that Xiang Yuan in your court recently? Someone came to find her the night before and gave her a small brocade box containing pills. Arbor propped up his small chin with one hand as he ate intermittently. I took a look. It should be a slow-acting poison pill. But Xiang Yuan buried this wooden box under the roots of a tree in her backyard. Mo Yen snorted. She has a bit of a brain. She definitely knew that you would definitely send someone to keep an eye on her. Her doing this is nothing more than pledging allegiance to you. Do you believe that? Arbor shook his head slightly. Previously, she also said that Omega Kotoku sent a group of people especially to kidnap you on the day of the competition. It caused him to nervously make defensive arrangements early on that day. The people from Omega Kotoku didn't come, but that wretched Mu Qianqian came, and it almost disgusted him to death. During this period of time, the crown prince hadn't been idle and had been suppressing all of the Mu family's businesses in the capital with all his might. Since they made him suffer, then he had to make the Mu family suffer as well. Sigh. Arbor sighed. Forget it, I won't think about it. In any case, it can't cause any big waves. But I think Omega Kotoku must have his reasons for putting a pawn by your side. Mo Lien stuffed a few pine nuts into her mouth. Why don't we just kick him out? I'm just curious about what she's up to. Arbor punched his little fist. First of all, she's just an ordinary person. You definitely won't be on guard against her. Secondly, she escaped from the Qin estate in the middle of the night and sold you a piece of information. Or was it the poison that he received as a gift from the Qin estate's guards, but was unwilling to use it on you? All these things are conveying the same message to you, to show you their loyalty. It's good that you're curious. Omega Kotoku knows that you're curious and wants you to keep her in the mansion. Prince Mo raised his eyebrows and narrowed his eyes. No matter how she treated you in the past, she's still the same person. I think she's dangerous. If you don't do anything, I'll take care of her for you. If he did make a move, his methods wouldn't be so gentle. Arbor helplessly glanced at him. All right, then let Xiang Yuanyuan leave. Arbor immediately called Xiao Yao over and had Xiao Yao give her some money and food before asking her to leave the Qiao estate. Then he turned his little head to look at the crown prince. Satisfied? Prince Mo chuckled and nodded. The two chatted for a while. 10 minutes after the lanterns were lit, Manager Gong brought someone over to deliver the Great King's verbal order. When he saw that the crown prince was also present, Gong Cheng and instantly felt cold sweat drip down his forehead. Under the crown prince's cold gaze, Gong Cheng fearfully announced His Majesty's verbal order. The crown princess was ordered to wake up at 3 in the morning tomorrow and personally lead a group of womenfolk to the Nimpin Tower of the Honghai Temple to pray for the country and its people. Chapter 10-11. Omega Kotoku's brush-wielding hand paused for a moment, and he asked without even raising his head, chased out? Yes. A man around 27 or 28 years old stood in front of Omega Kotoku's desk with his head bowed, holding his breath as he waited for the second young master's rage. However, the second young master didn't get angry, but only nodded indifferently. I miscalculated. I didn't expect that she wasn't the least bit curious and didn't keep her. What a heartless fellow. How could young master miscalculate? Wang Cheng raised his head and frowned. Our people delivered a secret poison pill to Xiang Yuanyuan the day before yesterday. Until today, eldest Miss Qiao hasn't made any moves, and she doesn't have the slightest intention of chasing her away. Presumably, she's a little curious. Oh. Omega Kotoku put down the brush in his hand, then raised his eyes and glanced indifferently at Wang Cheng. You think it was the crown prince's idea? Wang Cheng nodded without hesitation. According to this subordinate's investigation, the crown prince arrived at the Marquis of Jiayuan's estate this evening. Before the lanterns were lit, Miss Qiao sent someone to deliver some soft travel expenses and sent Xiang Yuanyuan away. A jadeite color flitted across Omega Kotoku's eyes, and he smiled faintly. That man is indeed this young master's formidable opponent. Thinking about it carefully, even Shuntian Prefecture's people suffered a crushing defeat at his hands. I'm afraid that no one in the lower star domain can take care of him. Wang Cheng asked rather anxiously, Young master, should this subordinate make a move, and send that Xiang Yuanyuan? He made a throat-slitting gesture, and a murderous look flashed across his eyes. Omega Kotoku waved his hand indifferently. If she's gone, then she's gone. Let her leave the capital in peace. Wang Cheng was startled. Then do we need to find Great Master Yi to remove the puppet curse on Xiang Yuanyuan's body? Okay, pluck it. Omega Kotoku nodded slightly, which made Wang Cheng even more surprised. However, he didn't dare to look at his young master for too long. After a glance, he quickly lowered his head again. His heart was filled with bewilderment. Usually, second young master would send people to clean up such useless chess pieces, but today. Second young master actually let that girl Xiang Yuanyuan go? He even planned to remove the puppet spell on Xiang Yuanyuan's body and let her go. Was this for Miss Chiao's sake? Second young master Qin waved his hand with a weary expression, dismissing this subordinate of his to leave as he sighed inwardly. Since he couldn't stay by her side, this little chess piece was useless. He couldn't control where he went. Second young master's heart softened. Wang Cheng retreated, and a murderous look flashed across his eyes. Just as he was about to turn around and leave, he heard Omega Kotoku's cold voice ring in his ear. Wang Cheng, I want her to leave safely. Don't go against me behind my back. You know what I'm capable of. Wang Cheng's murderous aura had just emerged, but it was suddenly shaken off. He hurriedly nodded and retreated from the young master's room with a face full of dust. His heart was filled with horror. How could he forget that the young master hated it when people acted one way in front of him and another behind his back? A moment later, several men in short green robes appeared beside Wang Cheng and bowed. Go and ask Great Master Yi to remove the curse on Miss Xiang's body. You guys escort Miss Xiang out of the capital. Don't make any mistakes. Yes. The subordinates immediately dispersed and left to carry out their orders. Chapter 10-12. Meanwhile, in the central palace, palace maid He Xiang entered the beaded curtains and bowed in accordance with the rules. Empress Xiao gently set down the teacup she was holding. She didn't say anything. The crown princess didn't say anything. The crown prince was also present at the time, and his expression was very displeased. Empress Xiao sighed. She didn't know what to say about her son's protectiveness. Old Nanny Huaxian said softly, but that's true. The crown princess will depart for the Mystic Beast Forest secret realm the day after tomorrow. It's a bit rushed for her to head to the Honghai Temple to pray for blessings. Moreover, the crown princess is currently in mourning. Empress Xiao faintly glanced at the old nanny. As the crown princess, she naturally has to prioritize the safety of the Mo kingdom. Huaxian lowered her head and answered, yes. He Xiang bowed and helped Empress Xiao get up to walk behind the curtains. This consort doesn't want to get involved. Let's just watch. I reckon there's still a big show to be played out. Empress Xiao's lips tugged into a mocking smile. Today, she had received definite news that the great king had relented and added Yonghi's name to his entourage. On the day of praying, Arbor woke up early and washed her face. Everything was done in an orderly manner. She was in mourning, so she naturally wore a mourning dress. Since the great king and the queen didn't dislike her mourning dress and specially ordered her to pray for blessings, she naturally didn't care about these mundane matters. The people participating in the praying today included the imperial concubines, princesses, and commandery princesses, as well as the womenfolk of third-rank officials and above. The majestic group of people gathered at the Dongshan Gate before the hour. They quietly waited for the crown princess's carriage to arrive before heading to the Honghai Temple together. Nimpan Tower was said to be the guardian pagoda of the kingdom because a monk once saved the late king's life. From then on, the many monks of the Honghai Temple had a meteoric rise. Not only did the Honghai Temple become the Mo Kingdom's national temple, the Nimpan Tower within it was also given the title of National Pagoda. It was said that it could protect the safety of the country. If one went to the Nimpan Tower to burn incense, they would get whatever they prayed for. The rumors were quite realistic. The entire pagoda had 9 floors, and it stood high above the Fu Mountain near the northern city gate. There was a saying that the Fu Mountain was 10,000 zhang tall and the mountain range was stacked with emerald green. Arbor got off the carriage and saw from afar that the abbot of the Honghai Temple was leading a group of people to greet them at the entrance. Greetings, Crown Princess. The abbot of the Honghai temple looked to be in his 70s, but it was said that he was over 100 years old. Arbor nodded. Grandmaster, you don't have to be so courteous. If you're ready, let's start. Praying for blessings was just a process. After leading a group of women to pray and burn incense, she had to sweep the Nimpan Tower to show her sincerity. Of course, she didn't have to sweep from top to bottom. She just had to go in and show her sincerity. If this process went smoothly, they would probably be able to eat and rest by noon. By evening, they would be able to go home. But if it didn't go smoothly, a cold light flashed through Arbor's eyes. She didn't mind spilling blood on the spot. Apart from the crown princess, Consort Cheng, Lu Fei, and imperial concubine Lin were the most respected people in this group. More than half of the women were ordinary people, and half of them were old. They were used to living like princes, so it was a bit unbearable for them to kneel and offer incense under the gradually rising sun. Arbor didn't look sideways. She only glanced at her mother and sister. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.